Chapter 106. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. During dinner, the whole family saw little Jing Kong playing with a golden abacus. They all felt that their eyes were about to go blind. Little Jing Kong didn't have much concept of gold. He only knew that copper coins and silver coins were the only two currencies that his family had ever used. As he said, he liked this golden abacus purely because it looked good. Gu Jiao thought, probably every child likes things that are made of gold and silver. Any bead on the golden abacus could be sold to feed the family for a year. However, they still had moral integrity. No matter how poor the family was, they wouldn't have any ideas about little Jing Kong's abacus. At night, Gu Jiao helped little Jing Kong organize all his things again. She found that other than the golden abacus, Buddhist scriptures, and other books, there were no other valuable things. They were all old and shabby things that didn't seem to be worth much. Gu Jiao breathed a sigh of relief. That's right. It's scary for a monk to have too much money, okay? It seemed that little Jing Kong's master doted on him very much. Even though he was very poor, little Jing Kong liked the golden abacus and spent all his money to make one for him. There were abacuses in the private school, so the students didn't need to bring their own. Therefore, little Jing Kong only took out the golden abacus when he was revising at home. He didn't bring it to the private school. It saved a lot of trouble. The next day, Xiao Lulang took the family's eldest child, second child, and third child to school as usual. Madame Yao brought Gu Jinyu's gifts to the house. As expected, Gu Jiao didn't accept any of them. Madame Yao didn't force her. Nanny Fong advised softly, "Madam, you should persuade eldest Mississippi. Although second Miss isn't her biological sister, she should accept the gifts." Nanny Fong wasn't speaking up for Gu Jinyu. She wasn't her biological sister, so she was already flattering her by giving her a look. However, there were times when people had to do things in front of everyone. Eldest Miss should have the bearing of a eldest Mississippi Yao Shi, however, warmly said, "Jiao Jiao, as long as you're happy, that's good." In this world, there is no reason to force someone to accept someone else's good intentions. Nanny Fong sighed. After Yao Shi left, Gu Jiao went to town to order iron tools. Zhao country had strict control over iron and salt. Gu Jiao needed a lot of farm tools, so she had to go to the county government to register and get a permit. Gu Jiao went to the county government. The county magistrate personally received Gu Jiao. He asked with a smile, "Madam Xiao, why did you come to the Yamen?" But who in the village is restless? His question stunned Gu Jiao. If he hadn't reminded her, Gu Jiao would have almost forgotten about those restless people in the village. When the Gu family was suppressed by Marquis Gu, Magistrate Lu was the first blade. He was the one who removed old Master Gu from his position as Li Zhang. Later on, he was the one who arranged for the grain delivery to Xiao Lulang. Of course, he didn't know Gu Jiao's identity. He only knew that she had some relationship with the Marquis family and that she was Scholar Zhao's wife. Thus, he treated her with extra courtesy. "Madam Xiao, please forgive me for offending you at that time." He was talking about how he was ordered by Marquis Gu to put Gu Jiao and little Jing Kong in the prison carriage. Gu Jiao said, "It's okay. I came here today to make some iron tools. Is it convenient for Magistrate Lu to stamp them with your official seal?" Magistrate Lu hurriedly said, "It's convenient. It's convenient. How much does Madam Xiao want?" Gu Jiao reported the number. Magistrate Lu was shocked. "So much? Can I ask Madam Xiao what they are for?" Gu Jiao showed her land deed. "I bought a mountain and want to open up a wasteland." Magistrate Lu understood that opening up a wasteland was not a trivial matter. It required a lot of manpower and material resources, so it was not surprising that she needed so many farming tools. Generally speaking, this kind of document would take a few days to go through the process. However, because Magistrate Lu handled it personally, it didn't take long for Gu Jiao to finish it. Before leaving, Magistrate Lu smiled and said to Gu Jiao, "If you need anything from the Yamen, please don't hesitate." Gu Jiao nodded slightly, thanked him, and left. As soon as she stepped out of the gate of the county Yamen, she saw the second boss running toward her, panting. Miss Gu, I've finally found you. I went to the village just now. Your great aunt said you came to the county Yamen. Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I just want to buy some iron tools and stamp my official seal," Gu Jiao said and looked at him strangely. "But why did you go to the village so early in the morning?" The second boss rubbed his hands and didn't know what to say. Gu Jiao said, "Tell me, where is the patient?" "Ahem." The second boss gestured for Gu Jiao to give him the document with the official seal. Gu Jiao gave it to him, and he asked, "What kind of iron tools do you want? How much do you want?" Gu Jiao gave him the list. He gave it to the coachman and said, "Go to the blacksmith shop in a moment and get it done." "Yes." The coachman took the document and list. "Let's talk inside the carriage," the second boss said to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao got into the carriage with him. "Let's go to Huichun Hall first," the second boss ordered the coachman. The coachman obeyed and waved the whip to start the carriage. He took the two to the medical center first, and then to the blacksmith shop. The second boss wiped the sweat from his forehead and sighed. "There's a patient who's a bit difficult to deal with. I had no choice but to come to you. I owe you a favor this time." Gu Jiao paused and said, "No need. Count this as my consultation this month." The second boss was stunned. "Huh? Then you're not going to young Master Gu's place?" Gu Jiao nodded and said, "Yes, I'm not going. He's already living in my house." Gu Yan went to the private school today, and the second boss only saw his grand aunt. Naturally, he didn't know that Gu Yan had already moved into Gu Jiao's house. The second boss nodded thoughtfully. "I see that young Master Gu's condition has improved greatly. It's fine if you don't go. You can go next month." Gu Jiao didn't say anything. After a while, they arrived at the medical center. When Gu Jiao entered the main hall, she understood why the second boss was in such a hurry to find her. The medical center had already been emptied of patients. All the doctors and workers, including shopkeeper Wang, were restrained by a group of guards wearing embroidered clothes. The main hall was filled with a dangerous and quiet atmosphere. A young man in his early 20s, with handsome eyebrows and cold facial features, walked over. There was a treasured sword at his waist. He coldly glanced at the second boss, and also glanced at Gu Jiao from the corner of his eyes. However, he clearly didn't care about Gu Jiao. "Where's the doctor you want to invite?" The second boss tried to calm down and looked at Gu Jiao. "It's her." The young guard frowned. "An ugly girl?" Gu Jiao changed into the clothes made by Yao Shi. They weren't shabby, but she still looked like a commoner. It was hard for people to connect her with a doctor who saved lives. Moreover, she was still so young. "It's her." The second boss wiped away his cold sweat. "She is the most skilled doctor in our rejuvenation hall. If even she can't cure him, then no one in town can." The young man looked at Gu Jiao with suspicion. She was a bit young, but she had a pair of eyes that could see through life and death. They were cold and emotionless. The young man knitted his brows and finally said, "Come with me." Gu Jiao carried the small basket on her back and went with the young man to the side room in the backyard. There were dozens of guards guarding the backyard. Almost every 5 steps, there was one guard. The entire backyard was packed. Gu Jiao also noticed that there were several guards hiding on the roof and in the alley. With such a strict defense, the other party was afraid that they had a great background. However, Gu Jiao didn't ask anything. She was calm from beginning to end. "You wait outside." The young man was also a guard. With an unfriendly tone, he stopped the second boss outside the door and let Gu Jiao in. Just as the young guard was about to step in, Gu Jiao suddenly said to him, "You also wait outside." The young guard. Without waiting for the young guard to react, Gu Jiao closed the door with a bang. The young man, the second boss, couldn't hold back his laughter. The more he interacted with Gu Jiao, the more he found that she was actually very protective of her own people. There was no limit to how protective she could be. There was a landscape screen in the room. Outside the screen, there were two servants who were waiting to serve. The servants were not young. They were about the same age as Gu Zhanghai and Gu Changlu. However, they had a particularly feminine temperament. They didn't seem like normal men. When Gu Jiao was about to go around the screen, one of the servants stopped her. "Please wait." "What do you want?" Gu Jiao asked. The servant took a piece of cloth and was about to cover Gu Jiao's eyes. Gu Jiao blocked his hand and said indifferently, "How can I treat people with my eyes covered?" The servant said, "You can feel the pulse." Gu Jiao said coldly, "Chinese medicine is about looking, smelling, asking, and feeling the pulse. Do you think I'm a god just by feeling the pulse?" The servant frowned and was about to scold her when the man behind the screen said in a hoarse voice, "Let her in." The servant immediately bowed to the screen respectfully. "Yes." Gu Jiao went around the screen and came to the bed. The man was lying in the curtain. Only a skinny hand was exposed. Gu Jiao sat down on the stool and felt his pulse. "You can see what you want to see," he said, and was about to open the curtain. Gu Jiao suddenly grabbed his wrist. "No, I don't want to see your face." Would she still be alive after seeing such a big shot's face? Gu Jiao covered his face with the curtain. Only the area below his waist was exposed. After the examination, the man's face turned red. Gu Jiao's face was as calm as water. The man cleared his throat. "May I ask what disease I have?" Gu Jiao looked at the screen. The man understood and said, "They are trustworthy people. You can just say it." Oh, the patient didn't care, so Gu Jiao had no scruples as a doctor. "Venereal disease," Gu Jiao said bluntly. "Nonsense." A servant outside the screen rushed over and stared at Gu Jiao fiercely. "My family," before she could finish. She was stopped by the man's stern voice. "Shut up. Back off." The servant clenched his teeth and retreated behind the screen. "Please don't blame me if I offend you." The man's voice and breath didn't have much panic. It was obvious that he had been through a lot. "You know about it, right?" Gu Jiao asked. The man nodded sadly. A doctor had seen him and said that he had venereal disease. But he didn't dare to believe it. He never went out to have sex. How did he get venereal disease? Gu Jiao didn't have much interest in the man's private affairs. She only told him about the transmission of venereal disease. As for how he got it, he had to figure it out himself. Gu Jiao continued, "Your disease has been in the second stage for some time. If you don't treat it, you will enter the late stage." The first and second stages of venereal disease were relatively easy to cure. Although the late stage could be controlled, the damage to the body was irreversible. The man was silent for a long time and asked in a low voice, "Can you cure me?" Gu Jiao glanced at him. "If not, why did I come in?" The man was stunned. You can really cure me?" Gu Jiao put down the small basket. "I will try my best. But you better let them go out first. They are always in a panic here. It will affect my treatment." The man looked at the screen and said, "Did you hear me? Go out." "Master, do you want me to say it again?" "I don't dare." The two servants went out worriedly and helplessly. "Why did you come out?" the young guard asked. One of the servants said, "Master asked us to come out. We can't do anything. But she is just a little girl in her teens. She doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken. She doesn't know martial arts. She can't do anything to our master." Before he finished his words, the young man clenched his fist and rushed into the room. But before he could completely open the door, he was kicked out by Gu Jiao. The young guard was like a sandbag that was hit. With a bang, he hit a big tree and hung upside down on the branch. The young guard spat out a mouthful of rotten leaves. "Didn't you say that you don't have the strength to truss a chicken?" Gu Jiao inserted the door bolt and took out a penicillin skin test from the small medicine box. "Give me your hand." The man looked at the strange needle through the curtain and was inexplicably scared. "What are you going to do?" Gu Jiao said, "I am going to give you an injection. If you want to be cured, you have to be obedient." The man expressed that he didn't want to be obedient. Gu Jiao said earnestly, "Alas, I am the doctor of the medical center. The whole medical center is controlled by your subordinates. Do you think I can still escape unscathed if I hurt you?" The man felt that Gu Jiao's words were not unreasonable, but he didn't suspect that Gu Jiao had ulterior motives. He was simply scared. Gu Jiao decisively grabbed his wrist. She was too good at dealing with disobedient patients. The man didn't even have time to react before Gu Jiao finished the skin test. The man looked at the small bag on his wrist. The best drug to treat venereal disease was penicillin. Unfortunately, there was no penicillin in ancient times, so it was very troublesome to cure it. There were few cases of complete recovery. This was also why the man felt that he had no hope. However, this disease was not a terminal illness for Gu Jiao. The result of the skin test showed that he was not allergic. Gu Jiao held the needle and walked towards him. "Bear with it." When the man saw that the needle was several times bigger than the previous one, he was so scared that his hands and feet fluttered. Facts proved that no matter how powerful a man was, he might be afraid of injections. Ugh, the man bit the pillow and endured the most terrible torture so far. Gu Jiao packed up and said to him, "Isolate him and come back in 7 days." After Steward Zhou negotiated with Xiao Lulang, he immediately sent a pigeon back to the Lin family in the provincial capital. When Master Lin found out that Xiao Lulang was willing to teach his son, but he wanted his son to personally visit him to learn, Master Lin packed his son up and sent him over without another word. Therefore, on a sunny afternoon, the white and fat Lin Qingye appeared at the gate of Qianxiang Academy. Lin Qingye's face was young. He was already 21 years old, but he looked like he was 16 or 17 years old. He held the heavy bag and asked nervously and uneasily, Is this here?" He stuttered since he was young, and the more nervous he was, the more he stuttered. Steward Zhou secretly shook his head. Such a smart child, but he stuttered. He didn't know if he would be laughed at when he went to school. That's right, Lin Qingye had always hired a tutor at home, because he was worried that he would be laughed at when he went to school. But now there was no other way. Although Lin Qingye was a scholar, he was only a scholar. If he wanted to stand out from the other scholars, he still needed to put in a lot of effort. "It's here," Steward Zhou said earnestly. "Scholar Xiao will come out in a moment. Do you remember what I said to you, sixth young master?" "Yes, I remember." Lin Qingye nodded. "Speak less." Steward Zhou nodded happily. "Yes, speak less. This way, no one will find out that sixth young master stutters." "Yes." Lin Qingye lowered his head. The two didn't have to wait long before Xiao Lulang came out from the private school. Behind him were Feng Lin and Gu Xiaoshan. Recently, Feng Lin had also eaten with them. Steward Zhou walked forward with a smile, clasped his hands in greeting. "Scholar Xiao." His gaze fell on the person behind Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang introduced, "This is my younger brother, Gu Xiaoshan. My classmate, Feng Lin." Steward Zhou smiled politely. "Ah, so it's little brother Gu and little brother Feng. Sorry for the disrespect." Feng Lin clasped his hands in return. Gu Xiaoshan glanced at him and asked Xiao Lulang, "Brother-in-law, who is he?" Xiao Lulang said, "The steward of the Lin family, surnamed Zhou." "Ah, it's him." Gu Xiaoshan of course knew that his brother-in-law was going to be a teacher. In the past 6 months, his brother-in-law seemed to have been possessed. His grades improved rapidly, and there were many people who wanted to learn from him. Steward Zhou pulled Lin Qingye over and introduced him to Xiao Lulang. "This is our family's 6th young master, Lin Qingye. He's introverted and doesn't speak much. I'll have to trouble Scholar Xiao to take care of him in the future." Xiao Lulang looked at him and said, "There's an exam today. You can only enter if you pass the exam. Do you understand?" Lin Qingye nodded. "Yes, I understand." Steward Zhou was secretly relieved that he didn't give himself away. Actually, it didn't matter if he didn't pass the exam. At most, he would be shoved into Headmaster Li's Zhongjing Hall. He could even skip classes to tutor him. But this time, Xiao Lulang didn't say anything. Xiao Lulang led Lin Qingye to find Headmaster Li. In order to win over his beloved disciple, Headmaster Li went all out. For the first time in his life, He let someone get in through the back door. However, Lin Qingye didn't disappoint. He finished all the exam papers that Headmaster Li gave him. His grades for the essay and essay were acceptable. His 8-part essay was a little worse, but he was still qualified to be admitted. He was assigned to Xiao Liulang's Class B and sat at the same table as Xiao Lulang. Since Lin Qingye didn't live in the dormitory, Steward Zhou spent a lot of money to buy a house in the school district nearby. Xiao Lulang took out bits of time every day to tutor him. He would tutor him for 2 hours in the afternoon and an hour after school. If he came early in the morning, he could tutor him for another hour. Why don't Scholar Xiao also stay here? Wouldn't it save you from a long journey? Steward Zhou suggested with a smile. My wife will be angry. Xiao Lulang heartlessly refused. Steward Zhou. Since he couldn't keep Xiao Lulang overnight, Steward Zhou had to find another way. For example, he replaced second Uncle Luo's small broken ox cart with his own luxurious horse carriage. Another example was to provide a place for lunch and afternoon rest for Xiao Lulang and his group. Gu Yan and little Jing Kong were people who needed afternoon naps. It was better for them to lie down in the wing room than to lie down in the classroom. Xiao Lulang had no objection to these two arrangements. Because they tutored Lin Qingye, they returned to the village late. But knowing that Xiao Lulang wanted to earn money to support his family, Gu Yan and little Jing Kong had no complaints. Gu Xiaoshun concentrated on carving wood and had no complaints. Are you hungry? Why don't we have dinner here? Steward Zhou said to Gu Yan and his 2 brothers. The 3 of them said in unison, No. Steward Zhou was shocked. No, isn't the food here delicious? It's all cooked by the chef. How can your wife's cooking be better than the chef's? The 3 of them. Jiao Jiao's, my sisters, cooking is so delicious that you mortals can't imagine it. The provincial examination was held once every 3 years. Xiao Lulang was lucky to pass the county examination this year. However, many candidates had waited for 2 years. With the approach of the provincial examination, the atmosphere in the academy was unprecedentedly tense. Even the teachers no longer went to the examination every day and began to simulate the provincial examination for the examinees. Xiao Lulang also set questions for Lin Qingye. His questions were more profound and tricky than the teachers. Lin Qingye seriously suspected that Xiao Lulang didn't sleep every night to read the 4 books and 5 classics to give him sentences that no one had ever memorized before. At noon, Gu Yan and little Jing Kong went to the wing room to rest. Gu Xiaoshun was carving wood in the courtyard. Lin Qingye felt a headache coming on because of Xiao Liulang's questions. Steward Zhou was guarding at the door. Suddenly, a servant came over. Steward Zhou moved aside and whispered, "What's wrong?" The post station was flooded. Brother Zheng was washed away by the water. He returned to the Lin mansion a few days ago and is now recuperating in the Lin mansion. Brother Zheng was the young man who went to invite Gu Jiao earlier. He was the son of a deputy steward of the Lin family. Last time, after Xiao Lulang refused to go to the Lin mansion, the young man surnamed Zheng went back home. Who would have thought that he would encounter a flood on the way? When did it happen? Half a month ago. The journey to the provincial capital was slow because they went up the mountain. But the journey from the provincial capital was fast because they went down the mountain. Therefore, Lin Shui, who came from the provincial capital, perfectly avoided the flood. But if Xiao Lulang and Steward Zhou went to the provincial capital, they would have encountered the flood at the post station like the young man surnamed Zheng. Xiao Lulang came out after tutoring Lin Qingye. Seeing Steward Zhou's expression, he couldn't help asking, "What happened?" It's like this. Steward Zhou told him about the flood at the post station half a month ago. Xiao Lulang knew that post station. It was the only post station on the official road. In other words, as long as they went to the provincial capital, they would definitely live in that post station. Judging from the time, it was just right for them to catch the flood. Lin Qingye couldn't catch up. It was faster to travel from the provincial capital. He had already passed the post station in half a month. Xiao Lulang thought about how Gu Jiao stopped him from going to the provincial capital. This was not the first time such a coincidence happened. Because she asked him to buy osmanthus cake, he avoided the medical dispute at the medical center. Because she came to find him for lunch, he avoided the collapse of the dormitory. And because she wanted to spend the night in town, he didn't catch the snowstorm on the way. Once or twice was a coincidence, but 3 or 4 times was a bit thought-provoking. In the evening, Xiao Lulang went to the kitchen to help Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao cooked, and he added wood to the fire. The 2 pots on the stove were used. One was steaming sweet potatoes and cornbread, while the other was boiling fungus soup. The thick soup gurgled, and the stove was very fragrant. Xiao Lulang broke a dead branch and put it in the stove. He said casually, "Today, Steward Joe said that there was a flood at the Qishan post station half a month ago. Fortunately, I didn't go to the provincial capital. Otherwise, I would have been washed away by the flood." Gu Jiao. Oh. Xiao Lulang looked at her. "Aren't you surprised?" Gu Jiao paused. "Oh, Xiao Lulang." Xiao Lulang asked her, "Did you know that there would be a flood?" Gu Jiao said calmly, "No." Xiao Lulang looked at her deeply. He lowered his head and broke a dead branch. "This time, I plan to live in the Lin family's residence in the provincial capital." Gu Jiao's hand that was holding the spatula paused. "Didn't I say that I won't live there?" Xiao Lulang said seriously. "It's convenient to live in the Lin family's residence. Moreover, I've asked Steward Joe. Steward Joe said that although the daughters of the Lin family are beautiful, they are all married. None of them are unmarried. You don't have to worry about that." Was she worried about the daughters of the Lin family? She was worried about her cousins of a Lin family. What kind of good fortune would he have for the rest of his life? Did he still want it? Gu Jiao held her breath, but she couldn't spit out. Her little face instantly darkened. Xiao Lulang almost laughed at the way she wanted to flare up but couldn't. The conversation was about to continue. At this time, little Jing Kong ran in angrily with a little chick in his arms. "Jiao Jiao, Guyan Gij's dog bit my little chick." After Guyan's little puppy also moved into the house, the whole family experienced what it meant to be in a real mess. As long as the little puppy and the little chick came out of the cage at the same time, they would be able to bite the chicken feathers all over the floor. The little puppy was big, but it was no match for the many chicks. It also knew how to set up a formation. Both sides were fearless when they fought. Gu Jiao asked him, "Did your little chick peck Guyan Gij's little puppy?" Little Jing Kong instantly fell silent. Little Jing Kong raised his head and said cutely, "The food smells so good. I suddenly remembered that I haven't finished my homework. I'm going to do it now." The little monk, who was the one who complained first, jumped out of the house. He was sure that he was extremely cute. Jiao Jiao was so charmed by him that she forgot to get angry. As he jumped, he stuffed the little chick back into the chicken coop. Then, in a spurt of energy, he ran away and disappeared. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115376718. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 107. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. After being interrupted by Little Jing Kong, the topic just now was not continued. 7 days later, Gu Jiao went to the medical center again. The medical center was cleared out again. Gu Jiao frowned. She forgot to tell them not to ruin the medical center's business last time. The young guard who was kicked up the tree by Gu Jiao last time had not arrived. He brought the other guards to clear out the medical center first. Gu Jiao was a little angry. Huichun Hall was the only medical center in town. Many patients came to see the doctor every day. If they were all kicked out, it would delay the patient's treatment. The man did not let Gu Jiao wait for long. He wore a bamboo hat and entered the medical center. There was a layer of gauze outside the bamboo hat, which covered his head appropriately. He could see outside, but the people outside could not see his face. Mississippi, the man greeted her with a pleasant expression. His tone was lighter than last time. Mrs. Medicine is really magical. My condition has not worsened. There was even a slight improvement. He did not say this for the time being. He was afraid that it was just his illusion. Gu Jiao was not in a hurry to see him. Instead, she said, "In the future, you are not allowed to occupy the medical center. The medical center is not your private territory. You have no right to ask other patients to leave." The young guard gritted his teeth. "What do you know? Do you know who my master is?" "Shut up." The man stopped the young guard. The young guard realized that he almost said something wrong and shut his mouth resentfully. Gu Jiao said lightly, "I don't care who you are. In short, you are a patient here. All patients are treated equally. You are not judged by your status, but by the severity of your condition." The man slapped the table and said passionately, "Not judged by status, but by the severity of your condition. If all the doctors in Zhao country can be like you, why worry about not being able to cure the people? You are a woman, but you have such awareness. Take off your pants." Gu Jiao interrupted him. The corner of the man's mouth twitched. Couldn't he wait for him to finish flattering him? Gu Jiao began to examine him. All the servants had left, leaving only the doctor and the patient in the room. Even so, the man's face still turned red. On the other hand, Gu Jiao was extremely calm. The man finally couldn't help but ask with a red face, "Miss, how can you be so calm?" Gu Jiao said, "Oh, I've seen a lot." Man, what kind of vicious words were these? The second injection, today. Gu Jiao took out the penicillin. The fear of being injected surged into his heart, and the man panicked. "Wait, can I?" Ugh, the man's body stiffened, and he bit the blanket. The current dynasty's provincial examination was around the same time as the previous dynasties, in the 8th month. However, in order to get to the provincial capital early, some of the examinees from the more remote areas set off from their homes in the 6th month. Xiao Lulang was escorted by the Lin family's 1,000-mile horse carriage, so there was no need for him to be in such a hurry. However, he couldn't leave too late either. The two of them made breakfast in the kitchen. Gu Jiao asked Xiao Lulang, "When do you plan on leaving?" "In 3 days." Xiao Lulang said, "Is Feng Lin going as well?" "Yes, he's going as well." "That's good. We'll have someone to look after on the road." Gu Jiao was at ease with Feng Lin's work. He might not take good care of himself, but he would definitely take good care of Xiao Lulang. Thinking of something, Gu Jiao asked, "Will we pass by Song County?" Song County was Feng Lin's hometown. Xiao Lulang, his mother, and his older brother had also lived in Song County. Xiao Lulang shook his head. "No, the direction is different. If we go to the capital by water, we can pass by." Song County had a canal, and the imperial court had 2 major salt transportation routes. One of them was near Song County. Gu Jiao said, "Oh." On New Year's Eve, Feng Lin's family had shed many tears. If he could go home, it would be very comforting. Gu Jiao said, "Then I wish him success in the provincial examination. Next year, he'll go to the capital to take the exam. While he's there, he'll go home." These words had no hidden meaning, but Gu Jiao felt that something was wrong. How could she forget that Principal Li had told her that Xiao Lulang did not want to go to the capital to take the exam? She had never tried to persuade him to do anything. He had his own life and his own choices. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. It was the day that Xiao Lulang left for the provincial capital. Steward Zhou had rushed the carriage to the village early. He knew that they needed to load the luggage. so he had the carriage stop in front of Gu Jiao and Xiao Yulong's door. The Lin family was the richest family in the provincial capital and was the overlord of the salt transportation. Their family's carriage was even more luxurious than the marquis's. There were 4 tall and powerful horses that were taller than a grown man. According to the rules, merchants were not allowed to enjoy such a high-standard carriage. This was a privilege given to the Lin family by the imperial family. The carriage was large enough, and there was even a soft couch inside. It was an ancient caravan. Gu Jiao was quite satisfied with sitting in this carriage to go to the provincial capital. There were many people in the village who came to watch the fun, but they did not dare to approach because of the guards and the horses. Only Go Hua, who always grew grass next door, did not fear the tiger. He climbed onto the carriage with all his might. Xue Ningxiang awkwardly wanted to carry him down, but Go Hua refused. Steward Zhou smiled and said, "It's fine. Let him sit on the carriage. Just make sure he doesn't fall." Xue Ningxiang understood that she was riding on the coattails of her neighbors. She was a young widow in the village and had been looked down upon by many people behind her back. Sometimes people were not evil, but the environment was cruel. When evil became a custom, good people would also raise their butcher's knife. But today, she, a young widow who was looked down upon by others, could openly sit in the carriage with her son in her arms, which the villagers did not dare to approach. She suddenly felt a sense of exaltation and elation. They were going to be back for a long time, so Gu Jiao prepared a lot of luggage for them. Feng Lin jumped off the carriage to help her carry the luggage and listened to her explain what was in each bag. Little Jing Kong found his brother-in-law and started a conversation with him. The location was still the latrine. Xiao Lulang was speechless. What was the little monk's weird habit? Did he have to take off his pants to talk to people? Little Jing Kong sat on his small toilet bowl majestically. Those who did not know him would think that he was sitting on the dragon throne. He was very domineering. He said seriously, "You are going to leave home again. This time, you will be away for a long time. Take care of yourself and don't let the family worry." Xiao Lulang did not want to hear the little trumpet girl's voice at this time. Little Jing Kong continued, "Also, you are a mature examinee. Don't rely on others to motivate you. You must learn to be the first in the exam." Xiao Lulang was speechless. "Are you the one who helps me to be the first in the exam every time? Okay, stop talking so much. Take care." After saying that, little Jing Kong stretched out his little hand, intending to pat his brother-in-law's shoulder like an elder. However, he forgot that he was sitting on the small toilet bowl, so he only patted Xiao Yulong's butt. Xiao Lulang turned his head to look at the little hand that was grabbing his butt. He was speechless. There were no classes in the private school today. Gu Yan was a person who liked to sleep in, but he still asked Gu Xiaoshun to wake him up and get up to say goodbye to his brother-in-law. Then he went back to his room to sleep. "Is this all?" Feng Lin took the last bag and asked Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao nodded. "Yes, this is Liu Long's food. I also made some pickles for you to eat on the way." "Okay." Feng Lin happily went to the kitchen to get the pickles. Seeing him come out with a big jar of pickles, Steward Zhou thought to himself that the Lin family was the richest family in the provincial capital. How could they lack good food? Not long after Steward Zhou tasted the pickles, he began to complain that Feng Lin did not bring 2 more jars. This time, they were really done packing. Gu Jiao sent Xiao Lulang to the carriage. Seeing that the carriage was about to leave, Madame Zhou and Gu Dishun, who had not appeared for many days, rushed over. "Jiaonyang! Jiaonyang!" Madame Zhou changed her usual cold face and put on an extremely flattering smile. "Are you going to the provincial capital?" While talking, Madame Zhou and Gu Jiao had already arrived in front of Gu Jiao. Gu Dashun was a little reluctant to come over. Holding the bag, he was a dozen steps behind them. Xiao Lulang frowned slightly. Gu Jiao lowered the curtain, indicating that he did not need to come down. Gu Jiao turned to look at Madame Zhou. "What are you doing here? Hey, look at what you're saying." My nephew's son-in-law is going to the provincial capital to take the exam. How can I not send him off? Look, this is a little gift from eldest aunt. As Madame Zhou spoke, she handed a basket of eggs to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao knew what she was up to and did not reach out to take it. Madame Zhou was embarrassed. She gave her husband a look. Gu Jiao coughed lightly and said to Gu Jiao, "Jianyang, the journey to the provincial capital this time is long. Liu-Lang's legs are inconvenient. Why don't we let the Shun go with him? They can take care of each other on the way." "Who will take care of whom?" Gu Jiao asked bluntly. Even if Xiao Lu-Lang was a little cripple, he usually did more work than Gu Das-hun, who was able-bodied. Gu Das-hun was spoiled since he was young. He did not know anything other than studying. He would be a burden if they brought him along. Gu Zhanghai choked. He was Gu Dashuan's biological father. How could he not understand that Gu Das-hun could not take care of himself when he left home? His clothes in the academy were brought home to be washed. If not, how could he beg Gu Jiao to let Xiao Lu-Lang bring him along? Originally, Gu Zhanghai planned to bring Gu Das-hun to the provincial capital himself. But life was hard at home, and they could not afford the travel expenses of two people. He also heard that Xiao Lu-Lang was tutoring people recently. The other party was from a wealthy family in the provincial capital and did not lack money. With the Shun's help, not only did they save on travel expenses, they also did not have to fork out money for food and clothing. He advised earnestly, "Jianyang, eldest uncle has wronged you in the past, but your eldest brother has never offended you, right? Your eldest brother is focused on his studies and does not know about our grievances. He has never interfered. Your parents doted on your eldest brother so much when they were alive. How can you bear to see your eldest brother suffer?" Gu Samlang and his wife did dote on Gu Das-hun when they were alive. But how did Gu Das-hun, who was loved by them, treat Gu Jiao's mother? When Gu Jiao's mother was bullied, did Gu Das-hun stand up for his sister? In that dream, Gu Das-hun even framed his own brother-in-law, Xiao Lu-Lang, for his own selfish reasons. He did not do so in the end, not because he found his conscience, but because Gu Jiao intervened. So even if the grievances between Gu Jiao and the elders were ignored, Gu Das-hun was definitely not innocent. Zhou sure helped. That's right, Jianyang. Just let them bring the Shun along. Look at how spacious this carriage is. One more person won't be a problem. Just let the Shun sit for a while. The coffin underground is also quite spacious. Why don't you go in and lie down? The matriarch casually walked out. The villagers laughed. Liu-Lang's grand-aunt's eloquence really did not disappoint. Zhou sure almost choked on her words. How can you say that? The matriarch spread her hands. I use my mouth to speak. Could it be that you use your butt? Zhou sure was so angry that she fell backwards. The villagers laughed until they fell down. She was mocking Zhou Sure for her nonsense. But Zhou Sure was also to blame for digging her own grave. Did she not know that there was no joke in the world that the matriarch could not answer? In any case, she was the champion of the last imperial harem. The 3,000 concubines in the harem were all obedient to her. What was a mere Zhou Sure to her? He's not even a child of your Gu family. Why are you still blaming us? The matriarch pointed at Gu Das-hun, who was not far away. If you really want to bring him along, it's fine. But let's make things clear first. Liu-Lang's legs are not good. He's not going to be Liu-Lang's boss. He's going to take care of Lu-Lang. Gu Zhanghai politely said, Of course. Of course. It was fine as long as he could get on the carriage. If he really went to the Shun and did not take care of Lu-Lang, could Lu-Lang chase the Shun away? Scholars valued their reputation the most. If Xiao Lu-Lang really dared to do this, they would go to the Yamen and make a fuss. They would ruin Xiao Liulang's reputation. The matriarch said, Words are no proof. I'll write it down. Xiao Shun, bring me a pen. Gu Xiao Shun went to the west room to get a pen. The matriarch said slowly, Write it down clearly. Gu Da-san will wake up at 3 o'clock every day to buy breakfast for Lu-Lang, iron his clothes, wake Lu-Lang up, help Lu-Lang take off his clothes, wash his face, and rinse his mouth. He has to personally deliver everything to Lu-Lang. He has to wash Liu-Lang's clothes and empty Liu-Lang's chamber pot. Zhou Shi's expression changed drastically. Why is there a chamber pot? The matriarch ignored her and continued. When the weather is hot, he has to fan Lulang. When there are too many mosquitoes, he has to kill mosquitoes for Lulang. He can only sleep when Lulang is asleep. If Lulang wakes up in the middle of the night, he has to wake up. In short, he has to unconditionally satisfy any request of our Lulang. Also, he is not allowed to talk back. He is not allowed to be disobedient. Otherwise, Lulang can beat him. You. Zhou Shi was so angry that her heart hurt. She almost leaned on Gu Zhanghai. However, Gu Zhanghai's expression was not much better than hers. Mrs. Zhou burst into tears and snot. My fellow villagers, please be the judge. How is this taking care of him? He is clearly ordering our to shun servants around. The matriarch looked innocent. Huh? This is a servant? You have been treating the orphan of the third branch like this for so many years. I thought that your Gu family likes to take care of people like this. No matter how thick-skinned Zhou Shi was, she couldn't stand it anymore. She left Gu Jiao's house with her husband and son in disgrace. Gu Jiao lifted the curtain of the window and handed a money bag to Xiao Lulang. I put some broken silver and banknotes in it. There were 10 taels of silver and 100 taels of banknotes. In fact, the card of the bank was also in it, but it was sewn secretly. Xiao Lulang nodded, took the money bag and said to her, "Let's go." Okay. Gu Jiao nodded and watched him leave the village. When the carriage disappeared at the entrance of the village, she turned and went into the house. Gu Jiao looked at the empty West house. Oh, he really left. As soon as she finished speaking, she sensed a shadow suddenly appear on the ground. She turned her head in a daze and saw Xiao Lulang appear at the door for some reason. Why are you back? She asked with her eyes wide open. Xiao Lulang stared deeply at her. I left something behind. Gu Jiao watched him walk toward her, and a series of little red hearts suddenly flashed through her mind. Was it me? Was it me? Was it me? Did he leave me behind? Gu Jiao looked at him with blinking eyes. Then he walked past Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao. Xiao Lulang came out of the West House with a certificate for the provincial examination in his hand. Without this, you can't enter the examination room. Gu Jiao opened the door expressionlessly. Take care. I won't see you out. Xiao Lulang looked at her, and a light flashed in his eyes. After he left the house, he suddenly stopped. If I said that no matter what the final result is, I won't go to the capital for the examination, would you still think that I need to go to the provincial examination? Yes. Gu Jiao said firmly as she looked at his back. I hope that you won't go to the capital in the future, because you choose not to go, not because you don't have the qualifications to go. Xiao Lulang clenched his fists, and a complicated look flashed through his eyes. Then, Gu Jiao smiled, if there's trouble or danger, I'll protect you. He didn't mean that, but... Xiao Yolong's chest inexplicably filled with a strange emotion. This time, he really left on the road. Gu Jiao returned to the West House and found that there was an extra envelope on the table. Gu Jiao opened it and a matching card of the bank fell out. You found it so quickly. Dropping the examination card was a lie, but returning the matching card of the bank was real, right? There was also a small note in the envelope. Gu Jiao could recognize quite a few words by now. She opened it and saw the words written in clear handwriting. Don't live in the Lin family, don't be jealous. The word jealous was written in a particularly bold and forceful manner. Gu Jiao frowned strangely. Why did she feel a little smug from the plain handwriting? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115345323. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Mobile Reading Website. zhhbqg.com Chapter 108. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao went to the medical center. Today was the day of the follow-up visit with a mysterious person. The other party had been waiting at the Huichun Hall for a long time. This time, he didn't let people clear the medical center. Gu Jiao came a little late to see Xiao Lulang off, so she made the other party wait for a long time. The young guard's face was completely dark. "Humph, you're the first person who dares to make my master wait." Gu Jiao spread her hands. "Oh, I'm honored." The young guard turned his face away. Gu Jiao entered the side room. The man wore a bamboo hat with a veil that covered his face, but his noble temperament couldn't be concealed. He was still guarded by two effeminate servants. After seeing Gu Jiao a few times, the servants were already used to her rudeness. When they saw Gu Jiao sitting down without even greeting their master, they could only criticize her in their hearts. But they didn't dare to say anything sarcastic. There was no other reason. Their master's illness was really cured by this little girl. Gu Jiao gave him a total of 3 injections of benzathine penicillin, one every 7 days. The last one was done last month. Today, he came for a follow-up visit. Gu Jiao took his pulse and examined him. "I'm cured, right?" The man's voice couldn't hide his joy. Gu Jiao took off her gloves and said to him, "You seem to be recovering well, but you need 2 years before you can be considered completely cured. It's not suitable for a follow-up visit." Ah. The man was silent. Gu Jiao noticed that his mood was different from a few days ago. "What's wrong? You can't follow up?" The man smiled and said, "To be honest, I have to leave." Oh. Gu Jiao was not surprised. Given his accent, Gu Jiao knew that he was not a local. He might not even be a native of Yuzhou province. He came from a place further away. As for the specific location, Gu Jiao could not guess. The man said amiably, "However, I believe that I have been cured by Mississippi. May I take the liberty to ask, Miss? Your medical skills are so brilliant. Where did you learn them from?" Gu Jiao said, "I have many teachers." This was the truth. In her previous life, she had studied medicine at a university and a research institute. After that, she had entered the research institute. There were indeed many teachers who had taught her. The man was not someone who did not have good eyesight. Since Gu Jiao was not willing to talk about this topic, he did not pursue the matter any further. He said, "Many thanks to Miss for curing my illness. I came here today for another matter. I hope that I can solemnly thank Mississippi." "You've already paid the consultation fee, so there's no need to thank me." Gu Jiao was halfway through her sentence when she saw the man take a brocade box from a servant and place it on the table. That brocade box was clearly not an ordinary item. Gu Jiao seamlessly changed the topic. "If you really want to give me a gift of thanks, then I can only reluctantly accept it." The servants simply couldn't bear to watch. If you have the ability, then have some backbone. Continue to say that you don't want it." The man gave a tolerant smile and pushed the brocade box to Gu Jiao's hand. Gu Jiao opened it and saw that it was an exquisite jade folding fan. Gu Jiao held the fan in her hand. It was slightly cold to the touch, and the jade was clear. It was truly a good fan. "Do you like it?" the man asked. Gu Jiao had a hesitant expression. The servants were dumbfounded. No way, a fan made of 1,000-year-old cold jade. She didn't even like it? "If you don't like it, you can exchange it for something else," the man gently said. "Oh, then do you have a fan made of gold?" Gu Jiao asked. The servants couldn't help but tremble. "You really don't know how to be polite. You want to exchange it for gold, but is gold worth as much as it? Country people really don't know much." The man smiled and said, "I don't have a gold fan, but I have other gold things here." After saying that, he called one of the servants over and whispered a few words in his ear. The servant's eyes widened. "Master, this is not appropriate, right? That is..." The man didn't treat the servant as nicely as he treated Gu Jiao. "Just take it." Why are you talking so much nonsense? After going to Jiangnan, I found that you have other abilities. You are more talkative. Yes. The servant didn't dare to neglect. He glared at Gu Jiao with hidden bitterness and went to the carriage to take a new small box. It was actually a Huarong Road made of pure gold. Huarong Road was a kind of ancient intellectual toy. Many shops sold it, but it was all made of wood. Gu Jiao saw a gold one for the first time. It was fun and sparkling. Little Jing Kong would definitely like it. Gu Jiao nodded with satisfaction. The man looked at her serious little face and finally had a little expression. He couldn't help but laugh. Miss, do you like gold or Huarong Road? Gu Jiao said, It's not me who likes it. It's my younger brother who likes it. The man smiled. Miss, you have a younger brother? Gu Jiao pointed with her fingers. Not one, but 3. Man, then it doesn't seem good to only give one. The man gave Gu Jiao 2 more gifts. The servants at the side all felt their master's pain. Why didn't you say it was good? Didn't you kill the conversation? Had he dug his own grave? There was no one to talk about it. It was you who cared about your face. When Gu Jiao left the medical center, there were 3 more luxurious gift bags in the small basket. The man cupped his hands at Gu Jiao at the gate of Huichun Hall. Miss, we will meet again. Gu Jiao glanced at him. We will meet again. What's wrong with you? After that, she carried the small basket and disappeared into the crowd without looking back. The servant was furious. He gritted his teeth and said, Master, look at her. The man was also a little startled. After all, no one dared to talk to him like that for many years. But he was in a good mood after he understood and laughed. Yes, what's wrong with me? Why do I want to see a doctor? Isn't it good to be healthy? Master, it's time to go back to the capital. Let's go. After Gu Jiao left Huichun Hall, she set off for the only iron shop in town. This iron shop had been open for more than 20 years and could be considered an old shop. Gu Jiao had just walked to the door when she heard the sound of iron being hammered. The iron shop's business was very good. The blacksmiths were so busy that their feet didn't touch the ground. There was no counter in the shop. Gu Jiao called a waiter and asked, I ordered iron here last month. Today is the day of delivery. The waiter carried a heavy basket of iron ore and shouted into the hall, Old Wang, someone is here to pick up the goods. Coming. A blacksmith drenched in sweat hurriedly ran out. He had a handkerchief around his neck. He wiped the sweat off his face with the handkerchief and looked at Gu Jiao. Who wants to pick up the goods? You. Last time, it was Huichun Hall's coachman who ordered the goods, so the old blacksmith didn't recognize her. Gu Jiao made a sound of acknowledgement and handed the cards to him. There weren't many scholars in ancient times, and not many blacksmiths were literate. Therefore, they used matching cards. Each pair of cards had a corresponding number on it. Based on the number, one would know which batch of goods it was. You haven't finished this, the old blacksmith said with a frown. Gu Jiao said, but last time, you said you would pick up the goods today. The old blacksmith used the handkerchief to wipe his sweat and said, but it really isn't finished. We can't do anything about it. How much longer will it take? Gu Jiao asked. This. The old blacksmith thought for a moment. 1 or 2 months. Gu Jiao was puzzled. That long? I didn't ask for too many farm tools, right? The old blacksmith sighed and said, it's not yours. Last month, my shop received a job before yours. It's about 1,000 pieces of ironware for mining iron ore. How can a small blacksmith shop like ours make it in time? We're still short of half. We don't have enough manpower, and we don't have enough furnaces. Old Wang, it's time to forge. One of the blacksmiths shouted from inside. Hey, coming. The old blacksmith shouted into the shop and then turned to Gu Jiao and said, Miss, you should come back next month to take a look. Gu Jiao didn't want to wait that long. After the old blacksmith went in, she also went into the shop. The shop assistants and blacksmiths were so busy that no one paid attention to a little girl. In all fairness, the blacksmith shop had a lot of manpower. According to this number of people, it was more than enough to make 1,000 pieces of iron a month. Then the problem shouldn't be the shortage of manpower. Gu Jiao looked at their blast furnace and suddenly found the problem. Smelting iron required an extremely high temperature. In order to reach this temperature, blast furnaces generally used blowers. Gu Jiao thought that the iron shops of this dynasty also used water pipes to blow the furnace. Who would have thought that it was the most primitive method of blowing the furnace by human power? The biggest disadvantage of human power blowers, commonly known as human power blowers, was that each port only had one tuwa, bag made of horse-skin. Every time the human power blowers, the tuwa would close once, and a blast furnace had about 4 to 6 ports. In other words, a blast furnace could blow up to 6 times at the same time. This efficiency was much lower than that of water pipes. Water pipes were driven by water power. Every time the water wheel rotated, the tuwa could close several times. Not only did it save a lot of time, but it also saved manpower. Gu Jiao told the old blacksmith her idea. The old blacksmith was very surprised. How could a little girl dressed in cloth know this? After being surprised, he said, "I've seen what you said. It's only available in the Imperial Quartz blacksmith shop. There were no craftsmen who could make water pipes. I can do it," Gu Jiao said. The old blacksmith was shocked. Gu Jiao thought for a moment, "But what I'm going to do next is not water pipes." Gu Jiao set a name. "What box?" The old blacksmith said that he had never heard of it. "Do you have paper?" Gu Jiao asked. The old blacksmith was shocked silly by Gu Jiao and didn't react for a long time. Gu Jiao simply found a piece of bluestone on the ground, took out a charcoal pencil from her purse, and concentrated on drawing. The other blacksmiths were attracted by her. The old blacksmith scolded, "What are you looking at? Go to work." The blacksmiths were afraid of the old master's prestige, so they suppressed their curiosity and went to work. However, they still looked at Gu Jiao from time to time. What was this little girl drawing on the ground of their iron shop? The old blacksmith finally couldn't hold back and asked, "Miss, what are you doing?" "Drawing," Gu Jiao said concisely. "Why are you drawing on my ground? I'll have to find someone to wipe it later. It's too troublesome." Gu Jiao smiled. "I'll let you finish the remaining 1,000 pieces of iron in 10 days. Don't you want it?" 10 days? The old blacksmith stood up with his hands on his hips. Stop joking. He was a blacksmith, so how could he not know? Even if everyone in the iron shop didn't sleep or rest, it would still take at least a month, unless they used the Imperial Quartz water pipes. But that would still take 20 days. I'm not joking. The old blacksmith expressed his disbelief. "If I do it, then what?" The old blacksmith crossed his arms and looked down at her. "If you do it, then I'll make your iron for free and won't charge you a single copper coin. Not only that, I'll also take care of all your iron in the future. I won't take a single coin from you." Gu Jiao seriously thought about it and felt that this deal was feasible. "All right, I agree." The old blacksmith pouted. "What do you mean you agree? You're bragging to the heavens." Gu Jiao quickly finished drawing and nodded her head in satisfaction. "It should be like this. Go and find a carpenter later." The old blacksmith's mouth opened wide. "What?" Gu Jiao rolled up her sleeves. "Don't be in a daze. If you keep on being in a daze, you won't be able to finish your iron." After saying this, Gu Jiao stood up and put the charcoal pencil back into her purse. Then she washed her hands and turned around to leave. The old blacksmith's face was filled with confusion. This can't be, right? Was this little girl toying with him? How could she understand these things? But for some reason, the old blacksmith thought of the other person kneeling on the ground and calmly drawing. He still went to call the carpenter next door. The carpenter was knowledgeable. After looking at the blueprint on the bluestone board, his eyes immediately changed. Who drew this? What's wrong?" the old blacksmith asked strangely. The carpenter didn't answer his question. He knelt down and touched the blueprint on the ground with both hands as if he was looking at a treasure. However, he was afraid that he would touch it, so he didn't dare to touch it. This cautious look made the old blacksmith puzzled. The carpenter's eyes lit up. Without saying anything, he went back to the shop and grabbed a pen and paper. He knelt on the ground and began to copy the blueprint devoutly. He had a vague premonition that this might be the most amazing thing he had ever done in his life. The old blacksmith was confused. He stared at the blueprint on the bluestone board. What's going on? Can it really be made? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115341479. HTML Genius memorized the site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Beacage mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 109. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. When Gu Jiao returned home, Gu Yan was already awake. He was sitting in the living room with the old lady and eating sweet and sour eggs. Seeing Gu Jiao enter the room, the old lady quickly pushed the sweet and sour eggs in front of Gu Yan. She said righteously, "I said I won't eat it. You have to be filial to me." Gu Yan was speechless. Who was the one who took away half of his sweet and sour eggs? The sweet and sour eggs were made by Xuanningsiang. Of course, the old lady didn't show up. She just encouraged Gu Yan to ask for it. Xuanningsiang couldn't resist Gu Yan's charm. She cooked a big bowl for him without hesitation. Little Jingkong and Gu Shaoshun also had a small bowl each. Gu Shaoshun ate quickly. He had already returned to his room to study his wood carving. Little Jingkong was still practicing on the tree trunk. He hadn't started eating yet. Gu Jiao decisively confiscated the old lady's sweet and sour eggs. In fact, the old lady, who had already eaten half a bowl, wiped her mouth and returned to her room. "As long as I eat fast enough, Jiao Jiao won't be able to catch me." Gu Jiao gave the 3 gifts from the man to her 3 younger brothers. She didn't need to ask, and the 3 of them accurately found what they liked. Little Jingkong picked up the shiny golden Huarong Dao and couldn't put it down. Gu Yan picked a jade thumb ring made of 1,000-year-old cold jade. It was better than the original one. Gu Shaoshun got a dagger that could cut iron like mud. This dagger was smaller than a normal dagger. It was easy to carry and could be used as an excellent carving knife. The 3 of them were very happy. Xuanningsiang was helping Gu Jiao clean up the backyard. Xuanningsiang often came over to help. In return, Gu Jiao would help Xuanningsiang to work in the fields. Occasionally, the old lady would help Xuanningsiang to look after the children. The main reason was that Go Hua was a man of few words. If you gave him a candied fruit, he would lick it for the whole morning. The old lady's ears were very quiet, so she naturally felt that Go Hua was easy to take care of. Little Jingkong, great aunt, you're eating the candied plums again. Jiao Jiao, great aunt is eating candied plums again. She already ate 5 today. Little Jingkong, who caught the old lady right after he finished practicing, thought, "Great aunt is too naughty. I told you not to eat, but you always secretly eat." The old lady's hands trembled. "Stinky little monk, Xuanningsiang came here today to look for Gu Jiao." "Jiao Nyang, Go Hua's second uncle sent us a letter again. Help me read it." Xuanningsiang handed a folded envelope to Gu Jiao. Ever since Gu Jiao learned how to read from Xiao Lulang, Xuanningsiang didn't ask Xiao Lulang to read the letter. Gu Jiao opened the letter and glanced at it. What's wrong?" Xuanningsiang asked. Gu Jiao said, "Oh, this letter is different from a previous one. It seems to be written by Go Hua's second uncle himself." Xuanningsiang's eyes lit up. "Really? His second uncle also knows how to write?" Gu Jiao looked at her proud face and didn't have the heart to tell her how she could tell that it was written by himself. It was because his handwriting was too ugly. It was even uglier than her calligraphy. Moreover, the words he used were very immature. It was at the level of a primary school student. However, it was still able to express the meaning clearly. The letter said that Gowa's second uncle was promoted and became the deputy general's personal guard. Although he was only a small soldier, it was still a great honor to be able to follow the deputy general. However, because of this, his original plan to visit his family this year would have to be cancelled. He would have to follow the deputy general back to the capital to report on his work. The deputy general only brought 100 personal guards. He is one of them. It's a rare opportunity, Gu Jiao said. However, these words didn't comfort Xuan Ningxiang's expression darkened. After Gowa's father passed away, the person my mother missed the most was Gowa's second uncle. My mother hoped day and night that he would come back to see her. When she heard that he might pass by our village this year, my mother was so happy that her old leg almost recovered. Now that he isn't coming back, how do you want me to explain this to my mother? Xuan Ningxiang was only 2 years older than Gu Jiao. In her previous life, she would still be a young high school student. Now, she was already a sister-in-law, mother, and daughter-in-law. Gu Jiao didn't know how to comfort her. She continued to read. Gowa's second uncle also sent you some money. He said that your birthday is coming soon and wants you to use the money to buy 2 sets of jewelry. It's a total of 20 taels. Xuan Ningxiang worriedly said, "Why did he send so much money? Did he not eat properly? He gave all the money to the family." Gu Jiao knew how to comfort her. "Don't worry. He won't starve in the military camp. It's just that he doesn't have anywhere to spend the money, so he sent it all back." Xuan Ningxiang slightly relaxed. Gu Jiao continued to read. Gowa's second uncle said that he doesn't want you to farm anymore. The money he gave you is enough for you, your mother, and Gowa to spend. You can rent the land to the villagers for a cheap price. Xuan Ningxiang hurriedly said, "How can that be? We have to save up the money and use it for him to get married in the future." Gu Jiao thought, "A man wants to buy jewelry for you. Do you really not have any other thoughts?" After lunch, Xuan Ningxiang went to the bank to get the money. Gowa hugged her thigh and refused to let go. Xuan Ningxiang had no choice but to take Gowa with her. There weren't many people in the bank. Xuan Ningxiang waited for a little while before she received the 20 taels of silver. She put the money into the cloth bag, carried Gowa on her back, and hugged the cloth bag in her arms. When she came out of the bank, she was bumped into by a young man who was dressed like a scholar. "Do you have eyes? How can you walk?" The scholar impatiently patted the arm that Xuan Ningxiang bumped into. Xuan Ningxiang embarrassedly apologized. I'm sorry, the scholar's companion said. Forget it. Don't mind her. We still have to rush to the exam. We can't afford to be late." When she heard that she had to pay, Xuan Ningxiang's face turned pale. Fortunately, the scholar was persuaded to leave by his companion. Xuan Ningxiang breathed a sigh of relief. But soon, she found that there was something wrong with her cloth bag. It seemed to be a lot lighter. She hurriedly took out her bag and was instantly dumbfounded. Her 20 taels of silver were all gone. Xuan Ningxiang thought of the scholar just now. The expression in her eyes changed and she chased after them. "Wait." The 2 young men stopped in their tracks. The scholar who bumped into her turned around and looked at her impatiently. "What are you doing?" Xuan Ningxiang gathered her courage and said, You stole my money." "What?" The scholar was puzzled. There was also a trace of shame and anger from being wrongly accused. Xuan Ningxiang was originally a bully at home. She was amenable to the soft, but afraid of the hard. If she really confronted 2 grown men, she was more or less afraid. But that was 20 taels of silver. It was such a large sum of money. Gowa's second uncle risked his life to earn it. She couldn't let others steal it. It's you." She forced herself to gather her courage. "I just came out of the bank. The whole way, I covered myself up tightly. Just now I was bumped into by you, and the money was gone." The scholar rolled up his sleeves and was about to get angry. His companion pulled him back. What are you doing? Why are you arguing with an ignorant woman? The scholar snorted. It's not that I want to argue with her. She's the one who blackmailed me. His companion sighed. Forget it. The exam is more important. Don't pay attention to her. For your sake, I won't report it. The scholar snorted coldly and turned around to leave with his companion. Xue Ningxiang rushed forward and grabbed the scholar's arm. Give me back my money. You're crazy. The scholar angrily stomped his feet and pushed her hand away. Xue Ningxiang rushed over again. As the two of them pulled and pulled, the surrounding commoners surrounded them. The scholar indignantly said, You said that I stole your money. Can you show me the evidence? If you blackmail me again, I'll report it. Since you're a woman and you're carrying a child on your back, I thought you were honest. Don't you feel ashamed bringing a child to do such a despicable thing? You. Xue Ningxiang's face turned green from his words. The surrounding people began to point at them. In today's world, men were superior to women. Moreover, everything was inferior except for studying. No one would believe that Xue Ningxiang was a widow compared to a scholar. The scholar bitterly said, I'm kind and won't report it. First, because you're a woman. Second, because we're rushing to the provincial exam. We don't have time to argue with you. This is too much. How can she blackmail a student who's rushing to the exam? Does she have any conscience? Isn't that right? She studied hard for 10 years just to be blackmailed by her? Look at her. She's not a good person. The passers-by began to criticize Xue Ningxiang. Xue Ningxiang felt so wronged that tears came out of her eyes. She didn't blackmail them. She really lost the money. Go Hua was originally asleep, but he was also woken up by the noise. Seeing that he and his mother were surrounded by a group of people, he cried out in fear. Dean Li had just come out of the dessert shop and was about to go to the town's medical center when he heard a heart-wrenching cry. This voice was a bit familiar. Dean Li paused and then walked over. At this moment, Xue Ningxiang was being criticized by everyone behind her back. No one believed what she said. Dean Li quickly recognized her. She was his beloved student's neighbor. Then he recognized Go Hua, the little fatty who called him father. Dean Li walked into the crowd. He was the dean of Qianxiang Academy. Even if he wasn't wearing the clothes of a teacher, his scholarly and noble aura could still suppress the crowd in an instant. What happened? He asked. Xue Ningxiang was already sobbing. The scholar said, This little woman blackmailed me. Dean Li asked, What did she blackmail you about? The scholar angrily replied, She said I stole his silver. Dean Li asked again, Did you steal it? The scholar exploded. What are you talking about? Of course I didn't steal it. I already said that she blackmailed me. Didn't you hear me? An auntie who was watching the commotion said, That's right. The two of them are students who are going to the provincial capital to take the exam. They are really unlucky to be blackmailed by this woman. Dean Li looked at the two of them. Which private school are you from? The scholar straightened his back and said, We are from Qianxiang Academy. Dean Li's eyes slightly narrowed. Is that so? What are your names? Which class are you from? What does it have to do with you? The scholar impatiently asked. Dean Li faintly smiled. I am the dean of Qianxiang Academy. I don't remember the academy accepting you two as students. The scholar and his companions' faces changed. The surrounding people were shocked. Dean Li calmly said to a young man beside him, I'll have to trouble little brother to report this to the authorities. Just say that someone here is pretending to be a student of Qianxiang Academy to cheat and bully women and children. The two of them were making a lot of noise, but they didn't report it to the authorities. Now that he had reported it to the authorities, who was real and who was fake, it would be clear. The young man's mind was filled with one sentence. Dean Li is talking to me. Dean Li is talking to me. I'll have to trouble little brother. Dean Li gently said. The young man nodded solemnly and dashed toward the county office like a wisp of smoke. This was like a flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple. The scholar and his companions saw that the situation was not good. so they broke into a run. Dean Lee calmly said, "I'll have to trouble the two of you to stop them." His words didn't have the slightest hint of a command, but they were inexplicably convincing. The two men who were watching the commotion caught the two of them. My money!" Xuan Ningxiang cried. Dean Lee slightly nodded and walked forward. He searched the two of them and found Xuan Ningxiang's money. Seeing the money that she had lost and then regained, Xuan Ningxiang cried and was excited. In the end, she burped, burp. "Many thanks. Burp. Father." Go Hua saw Dean Lee. Xuan Ningxiang was so shocked that she didn't even burp. This child was randomly recognizing a father again. Dean Lee was a mature and experienced man. Of course, he wouldn't get angry over such a small matter. He had already asked the experienced teachers in the academy. When children first learned how to speak, they would call a woman mother and a man father. It wasn't a rare thing. Father. Go Hua wanted him to hug her. Xuan Ningxiang was so embarrassed that she wished she could find a hole to hide in. "You're injured." Dean Lee saw the inch-long wound on her wrist. Blood was gushing out of it. She was so focused on getting the money back that she didn't notice that her wrist was cut by the other party's pendant. Dean Lee politely said, "Give the child to me. The medical center is nearby. I'll take you to bandage it." Xuan Ningxiang hurriedly covered her wrist with her sleeve. No need. It's just a small injury." Dean Lee sternly said, "You still need to see it. The weather is hot and it's easy to get infected." Xuan Ningxiang thought for a moment. "I'll go by myself. I'm also going to the medical center. It's just on the way," Dean Lee said as he carried Go Hua, who kept reaching out to him. After Go Hua had a father, she didn't want her mother anymore. She wrapped her chubby little hands around Dean Lee's neck and buried her head in his arms. Xuan Ningxiang was so embarrassed. The two of them went to the medical center one after the other. Dean Lee sent his old mother to the medical center. The reason was that when the servant was cleaning the courtyard, he found that his old mother was eating mulberries and suddenly fainted on the rattan chair. Old Madame Lee was old, and it was very dangerous for her to be in such a situation. Dean Lee couldn't wait to invite the doctor home and directly sent her over. In the end, the doctor said, "She's fine. Old Madame Lee just fell asleep." Dean Lee was speechless. He was worried that old Madame Lee would be hungry when she woke up, so he hurriedly went to a nearby snack shop to buy some osmanthus cakes that old people like to eat. After entering the medical center, Dean Lee found a doctor to treat Xuan Ningxiang's injuries. Go Hua was pressed down on the chair by Xuan Ningxiang. Dean Lee gave Go Hua a piece of osmanthus cake. Go Hua ate it heartily. As he ate, he looked up and realized that his father was gone. He climbed down from the chair and sneaked to find his father. In the end, he followed him into a side room. Old Madame Lee slowly woke up. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw a little bean. The little bean was chubby, round, and cute. Old Madame Lee waved at the little bean. Go Hua was timid and retreated in fear. Coincidentally, Dean Lee walked out from behind the green screen cabinet. Little Go Hua rolled over and hugged his leg. "Dad, Dad." Old Madame Lee looked at her son and then at the little bean. Her cloudy old eyes lit up. The Bodhisattva had appeared. She had a little grandchild. Because Gu Jiao was unwilling to return home, Marquis Gu and Gu Jinyu's return to the capital was delayed. Marquis Gu's original plan was to bring Yao Shi and the twins back to the capital by the end of June at the latest. However, Yao Shi and Gu Yan were both staying here because of Gu Jiao. This made Marquis Gu very vexed. Gu Jinyu was even more vexed. Consort Shu had promised to hold a grand hairpin ceremony for her and confer her the title of county princess during the hairpin ceremony. Being a county princess was a rare honor. As long as she became a county princess, even if the news that she was not the Gu family's flesh and blood spread, it would not be too degrading. But if she could not even return, how could she talk about a hairpin ceremony? Gu Jinyu was so anxious that a blister appeared on her mouth. Marquis Gu came to visit her. Seeing her so angry, he could not help but feel distressed. "How are you serving young miss?" The weather is so hot. Don't you know to cook fewer spicy dishes? A young servant girl said, Marquis, we're innocent. Young Mrs. Diet has been very light recently. Young Miss is angry because she is depressed. Gu Jinyu sighed. Don't speak nonsense. You can all leave. Yes. The servant girls left. Gu Jinyu said to Marquis Gu, Father, daughter is really fine. Marquis Gu frowned and said, Nonsense. You just have something on your mind. You haven't smiled recently. Gu Jinyu lowered her eyes. Daughter just misses grandmother. Grandmother is old and fell last year. Although she has recovered, her body is not the same as before. Daughter doesn't know how much more filial piety I can perform for grandmother. These words struck a chord in Marquis Gu's heart. Marquis Gu was usually filial. Furthermore, the old madam only had him and Consort Shu as her children. After Consort Shu entered the palace, the old madam rarely saw her. As a son, he could not attend to his mother. Just thinking about it made him feel unfilial. Marquis Gu frowned and decided to give Yao Shi more trouble. Who knew that Yao Shi's heart was as firm as a rock? If I don't go back, Yen'er won't go back either. Marquis Gu sked. Mother hasn't seen Yen'er in many years? Yao Shi said, but she doesn't like Yen'er either. Marquis Gu retorted, when did mother not like Yen'er? Yen'er is her grandson. She dotes on him too much. But she did not dote on her 3 precious grandsons as much as she did on her previous 3. The previous Marchioness and the old madam were of the same clan. According to seniority, she called the old madam aunt. The marriage between the 2 families made them even closer. The old madam naturally doted on her children. In addition, her 3 sons had lost their mother early. The old madam's heart ached. Thirdly, the old madam looked down on Yao Shi's birth. When Yao Shi gave birth to the sick Gu Yan, the old madam felt that it was Yao Shi's own illness that implicated the Gu family's descendants. At first, the old madam treated Gu Jinyu indifferently. However, Gu Jinyu was too outstanding and gave face to the Marquis Fu. Imperial concubine Shu also thought highly of her. Only then did the old madam gradually change her opinion of Gu Jinyu. Marquis Gu's rebuttal did not have much confidence. He cleared his throat and said, but Jinyu is about to become of age. How can mother not be at her side when she holds the ceremony? Yao Shi said, then holding it in the villa is the same. Marquis Gu said, I can't always stay in the villa. If mother is here, father must also be here. Yao Shi thought for a moment. How about you return to the capital first and come back on the day of your birthday? Marquis Gu, why was it so hard to kidnap his wife and children back to the capital? Marquis Gu used all kinds of tactics, but Yao Shi refused to relent. Marquis Gu, what exactly will it take for you to return to the capital? Yao Shi said seriously, if I return on Jiao Jiao, I will return. Marquis Gu, how could that girl possibly return? Gu Jinyu came to deliver ginseng soup to Yao Shi and inadvertently heard the 2's conversation outside the door. The young maidservant was also present. The young maidservant served Gu Jinyu and already knew about her and Gu Jiao's past. The young maidservant complained on behalf of her mistress. Why did eldest young miss only return to the capital after madam? Could it be that second young miss is not madam's child? It was second young miss who has been filial to madam all these years. Madam is too biased. Gu Jinyu held the ginseng soup on the tray and did not speak. The young maidservant said, aggrieved, on such a hot day, second young miss personally went to the kitchen to make ginseng soup for madam. She even burned her hands. What did that eldest young miss do? She caused madam to be so biased. Don't say any more. She is my older sister. She has suffered a lot. It is only right that mother dotes on her. Gu Jinyu finished speaking and left with a gloomy expression. For a few days, no one in the manor mentioned returning to the capital. The villa seemed to have returned to its peaceful days. It was not until the end of the month that a carriage arrived at the villa that the many days of peace were broken. Marquis Gu put on his official robes and tidied up his appearance. He personally went to the entrance of the villa to welcome the arrival of the other party. Dozens of guards lined up in a row, and a young man dressed in white slowly walked down from a carriage pulled by 4 horses in the lead. The young man's clothes were as white as snow, and he looked extremely noble. Marquis Gu flicked the wide sleeves of his official robes and stepped forward. He cupped his hands and bowed. "This official greets Royal Prince in." The young man who was called Royal Prince and slightly raised his hand and said coldly and politely, "Marquis Ding and does not need to be so courteous. My younger sister and I have traveled the world. This time we are rushing back to the capital to take the examinations. We were passing by and suddenly came to disturb you. I hope Marquis Ding and will not take offense." Marquis Gu smiled. "Royal Prince and is too serious. It is this official's honor for Royal Prince and your younger sister to visit my humble home. The weather is hot. How about Royal Prince and young Miss Zhuang move to the villa and speak inside?" Royal Prince nodded and slightly turned his head. He said to the carriage behind him, "Why haven't you alighted yet?" The curtain of the carriage was lifted and a mischievous little girl stuck her head out. Her eyes darted around as if she was curious. She then jumped down with the help of the servants. She came to Royal Prince and sighed, "Older brother, is this the villa with the hot spring?" "Greetings, Marquis Ding Un," Royal Prince Un said to his younger sister. The little girl curled her lips and bowed to Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu's title was below Royal Prince Anne's. Although the little girl was his younger sister, she did not have a rank. According to the rules, she should have bowed to Marquis Gu. However, putting etiquette aside, the little girl's status was too high. Although she bowed due to her older brother's authority, her attitude was not very respectful. Marquis Gu smiled and acted as if he did not see anything. He amiably led the brother and sister into the villa. Inside the villa, Yao Shi and Gu Jinyu also received the news. They were female and could not go out to welcome them. Thus, they waited in the Listening Wave Pavilion's reception pavilion for Royal Prince, and Yao Shi had left the capital for many years and did not care about the situation in the capital. She had never heard of this Royal Prince, and Gu Jinyu patiently told her about this Royal Prince and's legendary life. He is Imperial Tutor Zhuang's grandson. He is only 18 years old this year. He was conferred the title of prince at 18? Yao Shi was very surprised. Even imperial princes and Qin Wang were rarely conferred the title so early. Gu Jinyu shook his head. He was not conferred the title of royal prince at 18. He was conferred the title when he was 8. However, this conferment was not his good fortune. Rather, it was his misfortune. 10 years ago, the country of Zhao and the country of Qin fought, and the country of Zhao lost. The country of Qin proposed to use the crown prince of Zhao as a hostage. The emperor could not bear to part with his son, and the court officials were all against it. At this time, Imperial Tutor Zhuang stepped forward and was willing to let his most outstanding grandson replace the crown prince as a hostage in the country of Qin. If it was any other official's son or grandson, the country of Qin probably would not have agreed. However, the Zhuang family was the Empress Dowager's maternal family. Imperial Tutor Zhuang was the Empress Dowager's elder brother. His grandson was Empress Dowager Zhuang's grandnephew. Everyone knew that Empress Dowager Zhuang had been in charge of politics for many years. Her power was greater than the emperor's. Using her grandnephew as a hostage was not much less than the crown prince. Thus, the emperor conferred the title of Imperial Tutor Zhuang's grandson as royal prince, and then used his status as a prince to enter the country of Qin as a hostage. It was not until 3 years ago that the two countries fought again. This time, the country of Qin lost, and royal prince and finally returned to the country of Zhao. There were many stories of royal prince and in the capital. Gu Jinyu had only heard of them and had never seen him in person. She was curious, but her expression was respectful and courteous. She did not overstep her boundaries. When Marquis Gu's group finally arrived at the reception pavilion, Yao Shi and Gu Jinyu finally bowed to Royal Prince, and Yao Shi had her eyes lowered the entire time. Gu Jinyu was still young, No matter how well-behaved she appeared, she could not help but glance at the other person curiously. Then she froze. How could there be such a handsome man in the world? He was noble but not arrogant. He was elegant and refined. His every movement was noble, and there was a hint of otherworldly immortality. "This is my wife, Yao Shi. This is my daughter," Marquis Gu introduced. Royal Prince and nodded slightly. "Madame Gu, Miss Gu." Miss Zhuang walked forward. "You are Gu Jinyu? I know you." Gu Jinyu was slightly stunned. Yao Shi and Marquis Gu also looked at Miss Zhuang in astonishment. Miss Zhuang raised her eyebrows and said, "My fourth uncle praised your handwriting. He said that among people of the same age as me, your handwriting is the best." Miss Zhuang's fourth uncle was the provincial governor of Pingcheng Prefecture, Zhuang Xianji. Miss Zhuang smiled coldly. "Ha, bring me a pen. I want to compete with you." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online can be found here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115311140. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 110. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that could not be found online are available here. This was very awkward. Gu Jinyu's handwriting was famous in the capital for being outstanding. Although this Miss Zhuang was Provincial Governor Zhuang's niece, she would probably lose badly against Gu Jinyu. Miss Zhuang did not look like a magnanimous person. If she lost badly, she might make things difficult for Gu Jinyu. Marquis Gu looked at Prince An for help, hoping that he could stop his sister. But Prince An had no intention of speaking at all. Marquis Gu secretly broke out in cold sweat. He gave Gu Jinyu a look without batting an eyelid, hoping that Gu Jinyu would deliberately lose to Miss Zhuang. When Yao Shi saw Miss Zhuang making things difficult for Gu Jinyu, she inexplicably thought of Gu Jiao. Gu Jinyu was a daughter who grew up in the Marquis's household, but she could still make things difficult for her. If Gu Jiao, who grew up in the countryside, returned to the capital, would she not encounter this kind of situation? The group entered the reception hall. The servants brought over brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone. "How does Miss Zhuang want to compete?" Gu Jinyu asked in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Miss Zhuang raised her eyebrows and said, "Each of them will write a poem. My brother and Marquis Gu will be the judges to see whose handwriting is better." "The same poem?" Gu Jinyu asked. Miss Zhuang snorted. "Of course. Otherwise, how can we compete?" This was what a layman would say. Gu Jinyu saw through it, but did not expose it. "Miss Zhuang, please give us a poem." Zhuang Mengyan thought for a while, then waved her hand and wrote a poem written by Prince An. This was written by Prince An in his second year in the Chen Kingdom. He was not even 10 years old that year, but he had already written a 7-character quatrain filled with homesickness. His talent shocked the Chen Kingdom. The king of the Chen Kingdom pitied his talent and did not kill the hostage to vent his anger after the Chen Kingdom was defeated. Gu Jinyu knew which poem it was from the beginning. This poem was widely circulated in the Zhao Kingdom. While she admired Prince An's talent, she finished writing the entire poem smoothly. She was even faster than Miss Zhuang by a few strokes. After the two put down their brushes, the servants on both sides brought their works to Royal Prince An and Marquis Gu to judge. Marquis Gu had originally intended to say that Miss Zhuang was more powerful no matter what, but after he saw the two's handwriting, He didn't even have the courage to lie through his teeth. Was this really written by a human? In any case, Miss Zhuang was the granddaughter of Grand Tutor Zhuang, and her uncle was the literary master, Provincial Governor Zhuang. It could be said that the Zhuang family was full of scholars, and none of them were cowards. Why did Miss Zhuang turn a corner? Marquis Gu broke out in cold sweat. Daughter, didn't I tell you to give in to Miss Zhuang? Forget it. With such poor handwriting, there was no way he could give in. Miss Zhuang clapped her hands and arrogantly asked, "How about it? Who won?" Royal Prince and smiled faintly. Is there a need to ask? Naturally, you win. Marquis Gu was taken aback. How could he be so good at lying through his teeth? Gu Jinyu was also very surprised. Was Royal Prince the kind of person who felt wronged by the truth? Miss Zhuang smiled proudly and was about to taunt Gu Jinyu when she heard Royal Prince speak again. In terms of making a fool of yourself, who can compare to you? Miss Zhuang was stunned. Marquis Gu and Gu Jinyu were also stunned. He was too disrespectful to his own sister. After Miss Zhuang recovered from her shock, she put her hands on her hips and stomped her feet. Brother, how could you say that about me? Royal Prince calmly said, even a 3-year-old's handwriting is better than yours. If you can't even see this, then it's not that your handwriting isn't good. It's that your brain isn't good. Miss Zhuang was choked until her face and neck turned red. Royal Prince said, if you want to continue making a fool of yourself, then let's do it again. This time, do you want to compete in poetry, or do you want to take turns to lose to others in poetry? Miss Zhuang was so angry that she didn't want to bother with him anymore. She flung her sleeves and walked away angrily. Marquis Gu was embarrassed. Royal Prince An's way of teaching your sister is really original. Royal Prince An said unhurriedly, she's the youngest sister in the family. Her family has spoiled her. I've embarrassed myself in front of you, Marquis. Marquis Gu laughed dryly. How can it be? How can it be? Miss Zhuang is delicate and lively. She's quite cute. Royal Prince nodded slightly. It's getting late. I'll go rest first. See you tomorrow. Marquis Gu, Lady Ao, and Gu Jinyu bowed to him and respectfully sent him out. Watching his figure disappear into the night, Gu Jinyu murmured emotionally, this Jun Wang is different from the other princes. Gu Jinyu often went to the palace to accompany Consort Shu, and had seen many princes and princes. They were all not as outstanding as Royal Prince An, whether it was appearance, talent, or temperament. This kind of man, there was no woman in the world who could match him. Royal Prince An and Miss Zhuang were arranged to stay in the most elegant courtyard in the mountain villa. After Miss Zhuang returned to her room, she locked herself in her room. The maids wanted to comfort her, but were all chased out by her. There was a knock on the door. Miss Zhuang said angrily, "Get out. No one is allowed to come in." "It's me," Royal Prince An said. "Brother?" Miss Zhuang stood up agitatedly, but when she thought of her brother's embarrassment, she sat down with grievance. "I'm coming in," Royal Prince An said. He waited for a while before pushing the door open and entering. Miss Zhuang turned her back and showed him the back of her head. Royal Prince An said softly, "You were the one who wanted to travel with me. I said that I wouldn't spoil you like father and mother. You also agreed." Miss Zhuang choked. She didn't expect her brother to keep his word. She thought that he would be like father and mother. He said that he wouldn't spoil her, but in reality, he would indulge her without any bottom line. She choked. "I'm your sister, but you're helping outsiders bully me." Royal Prince An didn't argue with her. He walked forward and handed her a palm-sized box. "What is it?" Miss Zhuang asked indifferently. "You'll know when you open it," Royal Prince An said. Miss Zhuang looked at the box in her brother's hand. Her brother's hand was really beautiful. It was as exquisite as a jade carving. Even if jade was in his hands, it wouldn't be as good as his. Miss Zhuang sighed and took the box. She opened it and found a luminous pearl inside. She loved these exquisite and fun things, and her attention was immediately attracted. Royal Prince An said, "It's a 5-colored luminous pearl. It's the treasure of the king of Chun country. I used 2 poems to exchange for it. Once she heard that it was the treasure of the king of Chin country, Miss Zhuang loved it even more. Her brother still loved her. Miss Zhuang was happy. However, when she thought about how she compromised so quickly, she felt a little embarrassed. She cleared her throat and said seriously, "You're not allowed to help outsiders bully me in the future." After comforting his sister, Royal Prince returned to his room. A man in black walked out from behind the screen. He cupped his hands and bowed, "Royal Prince." Royal Prince and said, "Are all your people here?" The man in black said, "They're all here. They're hiding outside the villa and waiting for your orders at any time." Royal Prince and said, "Tell them that they don't need to hide in the dark. Just change into civilian clothes." The man in black thought and said, "Royal Prince, are you sure she's in Qingchuan town?" Royal Prince and thought for a moment and said, "Previously, His Majesty's people lost news of the Empress Dowager in Qingchuan town. In other words, the Empress Dowager did wander here. As for where she went, we still need to find her carefully." The man in black hesitated and asked, "Did the Empress Dowager really get leprosy?" Royal Prince and said, "Yes." The man in black frowned and said, "But His Majesty's people have already turned the town upside down. They even searched the villages under his rule. They didn't find anyone suspicious. Could it be that the Empress Dowager is already dead?" Royal Prince An's eyes were deep and dark. He said, "If she's alive, I want to see her. If she's dead, I want to see her corpse. No matter what, search her again." Everyone thought that this royal prince was ignorant of worldly affairs and was a weak young man who only knew how to play with words. However, if he was as weak as he looked on the surface, how could he live well after being a hostage in Qin country for so many years? No one knew how much the royal prince had suffered in Qin country. The royal prince didn't even tell his biological parents. However, the man in black stayed by the royal prince's side and witnessed the royal prince's dark days with his own eyes. He knew the royal prince's methods better than anyone else. Once he made up his mind to do something, he would definitely do it to the end. Because Miss Zhuang felt embarrassed when she lost to Gu Jinyu in the competition, she decided to ignore Gu Jinyu. However, even though she didn't look for him, he came to find her. "What are you doing here?" The next morning, Miss Zhuang looked coldly at Gu Jinyu, who suddenly appeared in her courtyard, and questioned him angrily. Gu Jinyu smiled. "I'm here to deliver a copybook to Miss Zhuang." Miss Zhuang's expression changed. "You still dare to mention copybook? You're here to humiliate me, aren't you?" Gu Jinyu shook his head slightly and said with a gentle smile, "Miss Zhuang, you're mistaken. Why would I humiliate you? I saw Miss Zhuang's calligraphy yesterday and realized that the problem doesn't lie with Miss Zhuang." Miss Zhuang's interest was piqued. She raised her eyebrows and asked, "What do you mean?" Gu Jinyu said tirelessly, "Miss Zhuang's strokes are impressive. A normal girl's style is too small and doesn't suit Miss Zhuang's strength. If Miss Zhuang changes her handwriting, you'll definitely be able to create a majestic feeling." Everyone liked to hear good words, and Miss Zhuang was no exception. Her repulsion towards Gu Jinyu instantly lessened. "At least you have some eyesight. I've always felt that there was something wrong with the handwriting. No matter how I practice, it doesn't work. Why don't Miss Zhuang try this?" Gu Jinyu took out a copybook and placed it on the stone table. "Whose handwriting is this?" Miss Zhuang asked. "It's the young duke's calligraphy," Gu Jinyu said. Miss Zhuang immediately exploded. "You want me to practice a man's handwriting?" Gu Jinyu smiled and shook his head. "Handwriting doesn't differentiate between men and women. It's just that women have less strength and it's easier to learn the style of a hairpin style. But if we're talking about handwriting, the young duke's handwriting is still the best." This was the truth. Gu Jinyu had also practiced it in private. Even if it wasn't the essence, it was still much better than the style of a hairpin style. She had begged this copybook with great difficulty from Imperial Concubine Shu, and Imperial Concubine Shu had used all her effort to get it from His Majesty. It was extremely precious. She had also made a great deal of determination before she was willing to take out the invitation. Gu Jinyu said gently, "Miss Zhuang, why don't you try it? You can start by copying it." Miss Zhuang felt that the handwriting was indeed beautiful. It was 10 times, 100 times better than the copybooks the Zhuang family had collected for her. Gu Jinyu had also persuaded her so nicely, giving her a way out. She had someone bring over a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. After copying a few words, she compared it with yesterday's handwriting. Indeed, there was an obvious improvement. Gu Jinyu praised, "Miss Zhuang is indeed extraordinarily intelligent. I practiced a lot in the past, but I still couldn't reach Miss Zhuang's handwriting. As long as Miss Zhuang works hard and perseveres, it won't be long before you surpass me." Miss Zhuang was pleased. Of course. After Xiao Lulang and Feng Lin went to the provincial capital for the imperial examinations, Gu Xiaoshun brought Gu Yan and little Jing Kong for lunch. Among the three of them, Gu Yan was the oldest, but he had the least life experience. He was truly Baby Gu. Baby Gu was also picky. "I don't want to eat noodles today." Baby Gu pouted and said, "But you should eat noodles today." Little Jing Kong spread his hands. Little Jing Kong was a person with a plan. He arranged their meals in an orderly manner every day. Xiao Lulang didn't care what he ate, so he let him eat. Gu Xiaoshun didn't care either. In the past, Gu Yan thought that it was his brother-in-law's idea and cooperated. Ever since he found out that it was little Jing Kong's plan, he started to disagree. "I don't care. I don't want to eat noodles." Gu Yan looked up at the sky. Gu Xiaoshun looked at little Jing Kong, who was frowning, and then looked at Gu Yan, who didn't want to cooperate. He had a headache. He really missed his brother-in-law. How did he keep these two guys under control? Before Gu Yan appeared, Xiao Lulang and little Jing Kong were two people who were at odds with each other. After Gu Yan appeared, the internal conflict changed. In fact, if little Jing Kong wasn't a huge threat, Gu Yan and Xiao Lulang would also be at odds with each other. To put it bluntly, Xiao Lulang, the fisherman, benefited from the quarrel between his two younger brothers. Gu Xiaoshun was in a terrible fix and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. His eyes lit up. "Sister." The two, who were at odds with each other, instantly quieted down and turned their heads to look at her. Gu Jiao came to the gate of the academy with a small basket on her back. She looked at the three of them and said, "Why haven't you eaten yet?" "It's all because of Brother Gu Yan. He didn't eat according to the plan." Little Jing Kong said with a serious face. Gu Yan snorted. "You only know how to complain all day long." Little Jing Kong put his hands on his hips. "I'm not complaining. I'm just stating the truth." Gu Yan snorted and said, "You made the plan yourself. I didn't agree to it." Little Jing Kong said reasonably, "I used to eat like this." Little Jing Kong had a little obsessive-compulsive disorder. Unless someone could persuade him with reason, he would change his plan. But obviously, no one could win against him. Gu Jiao asked Little Jing Kong, "What are we eating today?" Little Jing Kong said, "Yangchun noodles." Gu Jiao looked at Gu Yan. "What do you want to eat?" Gu Yan stared at Little Jing Kong and said, "Rice and fish." Gu Jiao nodded. "Just in time. I brought some rice and fish. Let's go to a noodle restaurant and order another bowl of noodles." The two of them had no objection to this arrangement. Gu Yan was confused. "How do you know I want to eat fish? What if I said I wanted to eat meat just now?" Gu Jiao smiled. "Because I really want to eat fish today." A pair of twins was just that magical. They had lunch at the noodle restaurant. Gu Xiaoshun didn't need anyone to send him back to the academy. Gu Jiao sent Gu Yan and little Jing Kong to the private school. Then she went to Huichun Hall and sold the herbs she picked from the mountain to them. It was still early. She planned to go to the iron shop to check on the progress of the farming tools. She would catch up with Gu Yan and the other two after school. 12 days had passed since Gu Jiao left the drawings. It took the carpenters 3 days to make the piston bellows designed by Gu Jiao. In the remaining 9 days, the iron shop really rushed out more than 1,000 pieces of iron for mining. The blacksmiths were all stunned. There was really such a magical treasure in the world. Old Wang, this thing is much more useful than the imperial quartz drainage pipe, a young blacksmith said. The old blacksmith nodded in shock. Yes, not to mention the imperial quartz drainage pipe. I'm afraid that the Liang Kingdom's drainage pipe is not as good. In terms of ingenuity and various small inventions, the Liang Kingdom was the best among the 6 kingdoms. The drainage pipe technology of the Liang Kingdom had already reached the peak. In order to obtain this technology, the Zhao Kingdom did not hesitate to exchange 3 mines. But even so, the Liang Kingdom only taught the Zhao Kingdom the basic drainage pipe technology. Who is that girl? The young blacksmith thought of something and opened his eyes in shock. Is she a spy of the Liang Kingdom? The old blacksmith slapped his head. Are you stupid? How could a spy of the Liang Kingdom casually pass such a powerful technology to us? That's right. The young blacksmith finally realized how much his head hurt. He bitterly glared at the old blacksmith. Don't you know how heavy your blacksmith's hand is? If you hit me again, I'll be a piece of fucking iron. Old blacksmith. He. The young blacksmith said, what about that girl? The old blacksmith said, what do you mean what to do? Oh, you're talking about the farming tools. Since she really let me finish more than 1,000 pieces of iron in 10 days, then I will keep my promise. I won't take a single cent of her farming tools. Not only that, the old blacksmith also wanted to thank that girl in person. Unfortunately, he waited for an entire afternoon, but Gu Jiao did not come. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642826/115273153. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bkj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 111. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao had planned to go to the iron shop, but she ran into some trouble. When she first arrived in town, she had already noticed that there were many more officers on her. She didn't know why, so she asked the boss of a bun shop. The boss of the bun shop was a warm-hearted person. He didn't ignore her just because she didn't buy any buns. Miss, you don't know? I heard that a prince from the capital came to our town. Those officers are under orders to protect him. It wasn't just the officers on the surface. Gu Jiao also noticed that there were many experts dressed as commoners among the seemingly unremarkable crowd. What a grand display, as expected of a prince. The road to the iron shop was blocked. Gu Jiao decided to go another day. She came to the private school to wait for little Jing Kong and Gu Yan, but she didn't expect to run into Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu had accompanied Miss Zhuang to town to shop. The two of them were waiting for Li Ji's osmanthus cakes. Miss Zhuang naturally wouldn't line up obediently. She spent money to buy all the osmanthus cakes behind her, but the cakes took some time to come out of the oven. Sister. Gu Jinyu saw Gu Jiao. She let go of Miss Zhuang's hand and came over to greet Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao didn't want to bother with Gu Jinyu. She glanced at her and didn't intend to stop. Gu Jinyu chased after her. Sister. Gu Jiao was annoyed. I said I'm not your sister. Don't call me that in the future. Gu Jinyu opened her mouth. But hey, how can you speak like that? Miss Zhuang suddenly appeared beside Gu Jinyu. Because Gu Jinyu had given her the calligraphy and flattered her, Miss Zhuang and Gu Jinyu had turned hostility into friendship. She even saw Gu Jinyu as her friend. Miss Zhuang felt that she had been humiliated when her friend spoke to her in such a humble manner, and even received a cold face from the other party. Gu Jiao didn't know Miss Zhuang, and she didn't intend to know her. She kept a distance from the two of them with an expressionless face. Miss Zhuang had never been ignored like this before. She was furious. "Stop right there." Gu Jinyu tugged at Miss Zhuang's sleeve. "Miss Zhuang, forget it." Miss Zhuang said angrily. "What do you mean by forget? She was just an unruly commoner, yet she dared to give the daughter of an aristocratic family a hard time. Who did she borrow the guts from?" "She," Gu Jinyu said awkwardly. "She's my elder sister." Miss Zhuang sneered. "What kind of sister is she? Do you think an unruly commoner is worthy?" Gu Jinyu explained. "I'm not lying. She really is my father's child." Miss Zhuang looked at Gu Jiao from head to toe. "Poor and ugly. I understand. She is your father's illegitimate daughter." Marquis Gu only had one daughter who had acknowledged her identity. If he had other children, then they must be mistresses, and mistresses were illegitimate children. Gu Jinyu tugged at her and said, "No, Miss Zhuang, things are a little complicated. I'll explain it to you later." Miss Zhuang snorted coldly. "You don't have to speak up for her. She's just a cheap wretch who can't be seen in public. Why do you have to give her face? I've seen many people like her. She thinks that she's a proper master just because her mother is a fox. She doesn't know that a pheasant will always be a pheasant. Even if she flies to a branch, she can't become a phoenix." She was scolding Gu Jiao, but Gu Jinyu felt as if she was scolding herself. Her face burned. Gu Jiao's expression was extremely calm, as if she wasn't the one being scolded. This made Gu Jinyu feel even more stifled. This Miss Zhuang was too good at scolding others. Miss Zhuang scolded Gu Jiao for a long time, but the other party didn't do anything. She felt that her fist had hit cotton. She took a few steps forward, pointed at Gu Jiao's nose, and said, "You apologize to my friend immediately." Gu Jiao looked at her as if she was looking at an idiot. This look completely infuriated Miss Zhuang. At this moment, school was over. Gu Yan and little Jing Kong walked out. The two of them saw Gu Jiao, and little Jing Kong ran to Gu Jiao's side. Gu Yan couldn't run away. He could only watch as the little monk threw himself at Gu Jiao. Little Jing Kong hugged Jiao Jiao. Miss Zhuang and Gu Jiao were very close to each other. When little Jing Kong ran past her, he accidentally brushed against her skirt. Miss Zhuang was instantly enraged. "How can you walk like that? You've dirtied my skirt." Gu Jiao's gaze turned cold. Gu Yan's expression also turned cold. Little Jing Kong didn't sense the hostility in her words. He let go of Jiao Jiao's hand and carefully studied Miss Zhuang's skirt. "Did I dirty your skirt? Let me see." Miss Zhuang suddenly pulled her skirt. "Don't touch me with your dirty hands." Gu Yan walked over coldly and took out a handkerchief. He squatted down and grabbed the little monk's hand to wipe it carefully. After that, he threw the handkerchief on the ground without hesitation. "Don't touch dirty things outside in the future." Miss Zhuang widened her eyes in disbelief. Did she hear it wrong? Did this guy say that her skirt was dirty? Miss Zhuang was furious. Just now, she was still thinking that this person was so beautiful. Now, she turned around and found that he was an arrogant bastard. Gu Jinyu looked at Gu Yan and said, "Yan, this is Miss Zhuang. She's prince and sister." Miss Zhuang frowned. "You know him?" Gu Jinyu nodded. "He's my father's son. He and elder sister are fraternal twins." Miss Zhuang looked at Gu Yan with disdain. "Fraternal twins. That means he's also an illegitimate child." "I heard that there's a short-lived ghost in Marquis Ding and Fu. Don't tell me you're also a short-lived ghost?" These words were too hurtful. Even Gu Jinyu's expression changed. Gu Jiaojiao's expression didn't change. She said to Gu Yan, "The two of you go over there and wait for me." "Oh." Gu Yan grabbed little Jing Kong's hand and brought him back to the private school. Once the two disappeared, Gu Jiao gave Miss Zhuang a slap. Miss Zhuang was stunned. You hit me?" Gu Jiao coldly said. If I hit you, I'll hit you. Do I need to pick a date? Gu Jinyu's face turned pale. Elder sister, how could you slap. Gu Jiao also gave her a slap. Will it kill you to speak properly? Are you stuttering or stuttering? You can't explain clearly in one sentence, and have to divide it into 3 or 4 parts. There's too much money in the Marquis Fu. Did it all run into your brain? Gu Jinyu staggered from the rebuke. Not far away, Marquis Gu and Royal Prince heard the commotion from the servants, and came over to see what happened. In the end, they saw Miss Zhuang and Gu Jinyu swollen like buns. Elder brother. Miss Zhuang threw herself in front of Royal Prince and let him see her injured face. She pointed at Gu Jiao. She hit me. She hit me. When Marquis Gu saw Gu Jiao, his head exploded. Why was it this girl again? Royal Prince An's gaze fell on Gu Jiao's face. Because of the birthmark on the left side of her face. Her face wasn't considered pretty, but the coldness between her brows made her more elegant than the so-called beauties in the capital. Gu Jinyu also returned to Marquis Gu's side. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she looked aggrieved. Marquis Gu's heart ached. What happened? Royal Prince An also looked at Gu Jinyu, waiting for her explanation. Gu Jinyu lowered her eyes and said, Elder sister and Miss Zhuang had some misunderstanding. Actually, it's my fault for not making things clear. It's all my fault. Father, don't blame elder sister. Marquis Gu was so angry that he leaned back. So, she really hit you? Crazy. This girl was so daring. Not only did she hit her own father, she even hit her younger sister and the Marquis younger sister. How many heads did she think she had? Wasn't she afraid that the entire Marquis Fu would be buried with her? Marquis Gu cupped his hands. Royal Prince looked at Gu Jinyu. What misunderstanding? Gu Jinyu lowered her eyes and said, I said this is my elder sister. I didn't make it clear and caused Miss Zhuang to misunderstand that she's my father's illegitimate daughter. Miss Zhuang glared at Gu Jiao angrily. What misunderstanding? Isn't she? Marquis Gu gritted his teeth and cupped his hands at Royal Prince, and she's my wife's blood. Royal Prince An's confused gaze landed on Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu only felt a prickle in her back, but Royal Prince An didn't ask further. Miss Zhuang couldn't help but ask, she's your biological daughter. What about her? The first one she was referring to was Gu Jiao, and the second one was Gu Jinyu. Gu Jinyu clenched her fists. Marquis Gu broke out in cold sweat and said awkwardly, Jinyu is also my wife's daughter. Miss Zhuang asked, so they're not fraternal twins, but triplets? Marquis Gu wanted to say no, but when he turned his head, he saw Gu Jinyu's red eyes. Her aggrieved look made his heart soften. He didn't say anything, so Miss Zhuang thought she guessed right. Miss Zhuang looked coldly at Gu Jinyu. She's your own elder sister. Can't you make things clear? Gu Jinyu said softly, I wanted to say it, but Miss Zhuang didn't give me a chance, Royal Prince An said, just because she misunderstood that she was an illegitimate daughter. My sister spoke rudely to her. Gu Jinyu said guiltily. And Miss Zhuang thought that I was bullied by my elder sister. She stood up for me and said a few words to my elder sister. Royal Prince An looked at Miss Zhuang. What did you say? Miss Zhuang's eyes flashed. I didn't say much, just those few words. What few words? Royal Prince An asked sternly. Miss Zhuang muttered softly, those few words about the illegitimate daughter. Royal Prince An looked at the crowd and pointed at a commoner. Come over and tell me. That person was brought to the front by Royal Prince An's guards. His face was full of fear. Just now, he heard the old master call him Royal Prince. He was the prince from the capital. What did she say? Royal Prince An looked at the commoner and glanced at his younger sister. That person didn't dare to say. I'll pardon you, Royal Prince An said calmly. That person looked at Miss Zhuang. Miss Zhuang used her eyes to threaten him. Royal Prince An's tone was clearly easygoing, but he strangely felt that Royal Prince An was more dangerous than Miss Zhuang. He broke out in cold sweat and confessed. She called that girl an illegitimate daughter, a wretch. She called that girl's mother a vixen. She also called another person. She said, there is a short-lived ghost in Marquis Ding An's Fu. You wouldn't also be a short-lived ghost, right? It was not important who the other person was. When she said, there is a short-lived ghost in Marquis Ding An's Fu, anyone could tell that she was scolding Gu Yan. Gu Yan had been ill since he was young. The imperial physician said that he would not live past 15. But the imperial physician's diagnosis was one thing. Being ridiculed as a short-lived ghost was another. That girl was Marquis Gu and Yao Shi's direct blood relative. That meant that she was Gu Yan's direct elder sister. She called her an illegitimate daughter, a wretch. She called her mother a vixen, and even called her younger brother a short-lived ghost. If she didn't slap her, who would she slap? This time, Marquis Gu did not speak. Royal Prince unraised his hand and slightly bowed towards Marquis Gu and Gu Jiao. My younger sister's words and actions were rude. I will apologize to Marquis Gu and Miss Gu here. Marquis Gu quickly supported him. You cannot. This is just a quarrel between young girls. Royal Prince does not need to take it to heart. Royal Prince sincerely said, later on, I will properly discipline my younger sister. Marquis Gu was embarrassed. Royal Prince is too serious, as he responded. He gave Gu Jiao a look. At this time, she should also apologize. She should say that she had hit someone in a moment of impulse. In the end, Gu Jiao ignored his gaze and turned to leave. Marquis Gu, young Miss Zhuang angrily rebuked, You. I will not let you go. I don't care if you are the Marquis Fu's direct daughter. You hit me. I will remember you. You better kowtow to this young miss and admit your wrongs. Perhaps this young miss will be merciful and forgive you. Otherwise, when you return to the capital, this young miss will make you pay. Marquis Gu's eyelids twitched. Gu Jiao continued to ignore her and walked towards the direction of the private school. Young Miss Zhuang's lungs were about to explode. Outrageous. Do you know who I am? Grand Tutor Zhuang is my grandfather. The Empress Dowager is my great-aunt. When I return to the capital, I will make the Empress Dowager sentence you to death. Marquis Gu was so anxious that cold sweat broke out. The ruthless Empress Dowager, Zhuang, was famous for being protective. Whoever bullied her grandniece, she would really twist the person's head off. This stupid girl, what will happen if you admit defeat? Must your head be chopped off? Shut up. Royal Prince coldly scolded and said to the guard beside him, Send young Miss back to the villa. Yes. Young Miss Zhuang was so angry that she stomped her feet. I am not going back. I don't want to. Where did this dog come from? How dare he touch me? I will chop off your hand. Sorry. The guard took a cloak from a maid and put it on young Miss Zhuang's arm. Through the cloak, he sent her into the carriage. Royal Prince nodded slightly at Marquis Gu and glanced at Gu Jinyu's face. Gu Jinyu lowered his head. Royal Prince didn't say anything and also got into the carriage. Young Miss Zhuang saw her eldest brother and was furious. You didn't keep your word. You said that you won't help outsiders to bully me. Royal Prince said softly, Let me take a look. Young Miss Zhuang turned her back. Stop it. You don't care about me at all. Royal Prince I will give you. Young Miss Zhuang covered her ears. No, I don't want any gifts. Don't even think about bribing me. I want to return to the capital. I want to see my parents. I want to see the Empress Dowager. I want to tell you that you are working with outsiders to bully me. Royal Prince sighed faintly. I wanted to take you to play in town for a few more days. Since you insist, then let's return to the capital. Fourth uncle is also returning to the capital. Let him test you on your homework and see if you have made any progress. Hearing that she was going to be tested on her homework by Provincial Governor Zhuang, young Miss Zhuang did not make a sound. She removed her hands from her ears and weakly said, Then how about playing for a few more days? Royal Prince said, Then you are not allowed to cause any more trouble. I know. Young Miss Zhuang said perfunctorily, but she secretly swore in her heart that when she returned to the capital, she would immediately go see the Empress Dowager. She would have the Empress Dowager drag out that little wench from Marquis Ding and Fu and give her 100 slaps in front of everyone. Digression. Note, if I want to hit you, then I'll hit you. Is there a need to pick a day? Lines from the Hong Kong Drama Palace Intrigue. The newest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/115268292. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 112. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more interesting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. Little Jing Kong had a serious expression on his face on the ox cart on the way back. He met a very fierce benefactor today, and she said a lot of things that he didn't understand. It didn't seem to be anything good. But that was not the point. He seemed to be protected by Brother Gu Yen today. He was much smarter than Gu Yen. He skipped grades and got first place every time. Brother Gu Yen was like a baby. But when Brother Gu Yen squatted down to wipe his little hands and pulled him to the private school, he had the illusion that he was the baby. Little Jing Kong fell into deep thought. For the first time, he was confused about his position with Gu Yen. On the other side, Royal Prince and Miss Zhuang returned to the villa. Miss Zhuang was exhausted and fell asleep immediately. Royal Prince ordered her personal maid. Don't let anyone disturb her rest. Don't see anyone who comes. The maid hesitated. What if Miss Gu? Royal Prince's eyes were cold. I won't see her. Yes. The maid hurriedly responded. Royal Prince returned to his room. Not long after, the black-robed man flashed in and saluted him with cupped hands. Your Highness. Royal Prince poured himself a cup of tea and said lightly, Did you find anything? The man in black shook his head. I've secretly checked all the inns and clinics in town. I didn't find any trace of the Empress Dowager. Royal Prince murmured, maybe she didn't go to the clinic or the doctors in town. She didn't stay in the inn either. The man in black was puzzled. Then where did the Empress Dowager go? Did she hide in a commoner's house? Royal Prince was silent. The man in black didn't care. Royal Prince, that's impossible. Have you forgotten that the Empress Dowager has leprosy? In the early stages of leprosy, there were only some small red spots on the body and face, which looked like frostbite or allergies. But as the disease progressed, the symptoms of leprosy would become more and more obvious, and eventually become completely different from normal people. It was impossible for a leper to remain hidden, unless she had gone into the mountains and lived alone. But that was even more impossible. The Empress Dowager had lived like a princess all her life. She didn't even know how to cook. If she really stayed in the old forest, she would starve to death sooner or later, even if she didn't die of illness or get bitten to death by wild beasts. Royal Prince said thoughtfully, You're right, but if she didn't hide, where did she go? She has leprosy and causes a commotion wherever she goes. The man in black said, Are you really not considering the possibility of the Empress Dowager's death? Royal Prince said, I've said it before. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. The man in black was at his wit's end. Perhaps someone took her in and cured her. The man in black said, Leprosy is incurable. Even the most skilled doctor in the state of Chun could only delay the symptoms of leprosy. The earlier they interfered, the better the effect, but a complete cure was unheard of. Royal Prince obviously knew how unreasonable his guess was, but compared to being cured, he didn't want to believe that the Empress Dowager had died alone in a corner. He ordered, "Go and investigate the old woman who came to Qingchuan town last winter. Don't leave out the villages under her rule." Yes. The man in black accepted the order and went to investigate. His efficiency was much higher than Huang Zhong's group. In a few days, he found 2 clues. One was in Daniu village, the other was in Qingchuan village. The 2 villages were in the north and south of the town. This one from Daniu village was stranded there last winter. When the villagers found her, she was curled up in an abandoned cowshed. The villagers pitied her, so they let her live in the cowshed. Occasionally, someone would send her some food, so she wouldn't starve to death. Royal Prince asked, "What about the other one?" The man in black continued, "The one in Qingchuan village is a distant relative of a scholar in our village. Something happened to her family, and she had no one to rely on, so she came to seek shelter from him." From the clues, the old woman in Daniu village was more likely to be the person they were looking for. However, for some reason, Royal Prince chose Qingchuan village. There was no reason. It was just his intuition. In order not to alert the enemy, Royal Prince decided to go there personally. The man in black and his men were waiting in the town. Royal Prince rode his horse to the village. The summer days were long, and the evening sky was still bright. Royal Prince untied his horse to the old locust tree at the entrance of the village and walked to the house according to the map drawn by the man in black. Little Jing Kong was feeding the chickens in the backyard. He was worried that the chickens would run out, so he closed the door. Royal Prince knocked on the door. Little Jing Kong opened the door. That day, before Gu Jiao took action, Little Jing Kong was taken into the private school by Gu Yan. Therefore, he didn't know what happened later and didn't see Royal Prince in. However, Royal Prince looked back after getting into the carriage. He saw Gu Jiao holding Little Jing Kong's hand and walking out of the private school. There was a young man who looked like Marquis Gu beside them. He must be Gu Yan, who the imperial doctor said would not live past 15. It was strange. Why was this little guy here? "Is this your home?" Royal Prince asked. Little Jing Kong didn't open the door completely. He only opened it a little, and a round head popped out. "Of course it's my home. Who are you? What are you doing here?" Royal Prince said gently, "I'm passing by and want to ask for a bowl of water." "Then wait." Little Jing Kong didn't invite him in, but closed the door. After a while, he brought him a bowl of water. "Here." This little guy was very cautious. Royal Prince took the bowl and drank all the water in one gulp. Then he returned the empty bowl to them. "Are you alone at home?" Little Jing Kong immediately became alert and closed the door a little. "Are you a trafficker? Why are you asking about this?" Royal Prince said without batting an eyelid, "Ah, no. I just wanted to thank your lady for drinking your water." Little Jing Kong said seriously, "I was the one who brought the water to you. You just have to thank me." Royal Prince had never seen such an unconventional child. He was stunned and said, "Ah, thank you very much. By the way, can I ask you how to get to Daniu village?" Little Jing Kong would know if it was Apricot Blossom Village or Yanglu Village. However, Daniu Village was beyond his knowledge. Little Jing Kong was stunned. Royal Prince smiled. "Can you help me ask your family's lord? My lord is very busy. You can ask elsewhere. Go east. The 7th family's surname is Luo. Second Uncle Luo is an ox cart driver. He knows all the villages." Little Jing Kong closed the door decisively after showing him the way. He didn't forget to bolt the door. Jiao Jiao had said that strangers shouldn't be allowed in when there were no adults in the house. He was a child, and his great-aunt was an old woman. They were not adults. In any case, Royal Prince was someone who had been abroad before and had rich experience. Unexpectedly, he was rejected by a child. However, he didn't give up so easily. If the front door didn't work, he would go through the back door. He had to see that old lady today. Royal Prince went to the back door. The back door of the kitchen was also closed but not locked. Royal Prince paused and gently pushed the door open. Then he walked in. His footsteps were very light and almost didn't make any sound. Just as he took 2 or 3 steps, a figure suddenly jumped out from behind the door and hit him on the head with a rolling pin. With a bang, Royal Prince fainted. The old lady threw the rolling pin back on the chopping board and looked down at the unconscious Royal Prince. She snorted, "Sneaky. I can tell you're not a good person." The old lady heard the conversation between Royal Prince and little Jing Kong. He kept asking if the Lord was in the house. After being rejected, he sneaked in through the back door. Thief, he was a real thief. It wasn't strange that the old lady was so suspicious. After the family's life was not so difficult, they were indeed targeted by thieves. However, the thieves were all at night. At night, Gu Jiao and Gu Yan's secret guard were there. They could get rid of the thieves easily. However, she didn't expect the thieves to be so bold. They dared to steal things in broad daylight. The old lady looked at the handsome side profile and clicked her tongue. Even if you rely on your face to make a living, it's still better than being a thief. But why do I feel that this boy looks a little familiar? Have I seen him somewhere before? The old lady hit him hard. When Gu Jiao, Gu Shaoshun, and Gu Yan returned from cutting firewood in the mountains, he was still unconscious on the floor of the kitchen. Gu Jiao and Gu Shaoshun put down the 2 bundles of firewood on their backs. Gu Yan also put down the half basket of dried branches and leaves that he had packed. Jiao Jiao, there was a thief in the house. Great Aunt is so powerful. She knocked the thief out. Little Jing Kong turned into a little loudspeaker in a second and told them what happened. Gu Jiao quickly recognized that he wasn't a thief. He was a young man in embroidered clothes that she saw outside the private school a few days ago. He was the royal prince and that Gu Jiao mentioned. Gu Jiao didn't have a good impression of him. He didn't shield his biological sister and even apologized to Marquis Gu and her. He was so understanding at such a young age. She didn't know if he was too fair and kind or if he wasn't simple at all. No matter what, he couldn't get into trouble in their house. Gu Jiao grabbed him with both hands and brought him to Gu Xiaoshuan's room. The old lady didn't show any mercy. There was a big bump on his head, and he even bled a little. Gu Jiao applied medicine for him and wrapped him in gauze. After that, Gu Jiao took out silver needles and pricked his acupuncture points a few times. Royal Prince slowly opened his eyes. Royal Prince N's facial features weren't particularly exquisite, but he had an aura that could make people sink into him. His eyes were beautiful, but his gaze didn't seem right. Gu Jiao looked at him strangely. She took out her hand and waved it in front of his eyes. He didn't react. What was going on? Was he blind? At this time, the sky was dark and there was only a weak oil lamp in the room. Gu Jiao made the wick brighter, but he still couldn't see. However, he didn't panic and didn't show any abnormality. He calmly closed his eyes and said, "My eyes hurt." The first thing he said when he woke up wasn't to ask where he was or who she was, but to cover up the fact that he couldn't see. What a strange person. Since he said so, Gu Jiao naturally wouldn't expose him. After all, no one could guarantee that there wouldn't be any consequences after exposing him. The more you know, the faster you'll die. Then don't open your eyes. I'll find some herbs for you, Gu Jiao said. She randomly took some mint leaves and wrapped them in a cloth to cover his eyes. Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong poked his head in the door. Is he awake? It was the little fellow's voice. And Royal Prince began to guess Gu Jiao's identity. If he didn't guess incorrectly, she should be the woman who argued with his younger sister that day. But wasn't she Marquis Ding En's daughter? How could she live in this kind of place? He's awake. Gu Jiao asked, "Are you hungry?" "Unhungry." Little Jing Kong nodded honestly and asked, "Then is there something wrong with him?" Gu Jiao said softly, "He's fine. His eyes are just a bit uncomfortable." Little Jing Kong asked again, "Will he blame Grand Aunt?" Gu Jiao looked at an royal prince. Recently, our home has been burglarized a few times. You came in through the back door, so my grandaunt thinks you're a thief. It's my fault, Unroyal Prince said. He won't blame grandaunt. Gu Jiao turned to little Jing Kong and said, "Go eat some snacks first. I'll cook immediately." Only then did little Jing Kong feel relieved and leave. And Royal Prince listened to Gu Jiao's voice and found it hard to connect her with the woman who slapped his younger sister and Gu Jinyu. It was as if they were two different people. It was also as if her patience and gentleness were all given to her family. When there was no one else in the room, Gu Jiao asked again, "Royal Princeton, why did you suddenly come to visit?" Originally, it was just a guess. Now that she called him Unroyal Prince, it confirmed his identity. After all, it was impossible for people who had never seen him to know that he was Unroyal Prince. Commandery Prince could not tell her that he suspected that the Empress Dowager was hiding in her house. He hesitated for a moment and said, "To be honest, I'm here to apologize. Miss Gu has been wronged because of my sister." Gu Jiao, oh. Unroyal Prince couldn't tell if she believed him or not. "You're saying the person who knocked me out was your grandaunt?" Gu Jiao asked, "What's wrong?" Unroyal Prince smiled without batting an eyelid. "She's really strong." It seemed that the person wasn't the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager recognized him. Unroyal Prince planned to leave. At this moment, little Jing Kong complained in a small voice from the backyard. "Jiao Jiao, grandaunt secretly ate candied plums again." "I didn't." "Little monk, don't talk nonsense." "I'm not a monk." "You're little Baldy." This voice, Unroyal Prince felt his whole body tremble, and his whole body stiffen. Digression, begging for monthly votes, XX gave out monthly votes in a red packet. Friends who voted for the monthly votes, remember to receive them. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/115239314. HTML Genius remembered the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. mzhbqg.com. Chapter 113. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao walked out and looked at the jar that the old lady was holding tightly in her arms. "Great aunt, you said that you can only eat 3 a day." The old lady refused to admit her mistake. "I only ate 3. Gu Jiao pointed at the jar. "But there are clearly 6 less in this jar." He ate it. The old lady dragged Gu Shaoshun into the water. Gu Shaoshun, who was chopping firewood, was confused. "What's wrong? What did he eat now?" Gu Jiao cruelly confiscated the old lady's candied plums and searched her room for the stock that she had kept for a long time. The old lady's face turned green. Royal Prince unheard the familiar voice, and his heart tightened. Was it the Empress Dowager? It was a pity that he couldn't see now. But it didn't matter. When the sun rose, his eyes would recover. Gu Jiao finished confiscating the old lady's candied plums and turned around to see Royal Prince and walking out blindly. He was standing at the door and looking over. "What are you looking at?" "You can't see." Gu Jiao walked over and said lightly, "Where does Royal Princeton live? I'll have someone send you back later." Gu Yan's secret guards were in the dark, so they could do it for him. Royal Prince had already made up his mind to stay. He said softly, "I feel a little dizzy. Can I stay at Miss Gu's house for a night?" Gu Jiao narrowed her eyes. Was this guy here to extort money? "I don't have an extra room in my house." Royal Prince was about to say, "It's okay. I can squeeze with someone." But before he could say anything, he was interrupted by a familiar voice. Royal Princeton? The person who came was none other than Marquis Gu, who she hadn't seen for a long time. Marquis Gu came to find Gu Jiao. He thought about what happened last time. That domineering Miss Shuang was indeed asking for a beating. But what did Jinyu do wrong? Why did this girl slap Jinyu's mouth too? After hesitating for a few days, he finally decided to come to the village and have a good talk with her about bullying Jinyu. No matter if she returned to the manor or not, she couldn't vent her anger on Jinyu just because she didn't like him. The door was open, and he walked in directly. Unexpectedly, as soon as she passed through the central room, she saw Royal Princeton, who she had not seen for the whole day. Didn't he say that he went to the town for a stroll? And buy some Li Ji osmanthus cake for Miss Shuang? Why would he appear in his daughter's house? Could it be that they were also here to denounce him? Marquis Gu took a few steps forward and found that Royal Prince seemed to be injured. His head was wrapped in gauze, and his eyes were also covered with gauze. A terrifying thought flashed through his mind. Could it be that girl also beat up Royal Princeton? Oh heavens, what kind of devil incarnate did he give birth to? Marquis Gu bowed so hard that his waist almost broke. "Your Highness, my daughter is rude. Please forgive her." Royal Prince looked at him in confusion. "Marquis, you don't think that your daughter caused my injury, do you?" Marquis Gu was startled. "Was it not?" Royal Prince gently tugged at the corner of his lips. "I was careless. I still have to thank your daughter for treating me." Marquis Gu was dumbfounded. Royal Princeton probed, "I didn't expect your daughter to be proficient in the art of medicine." However, Marquis Gu did not understand and said embarrassedly, "Royal Princeton, you flatter me. She worked as a medicine boy in the town's clinic for a few days. She can't be considered proficient in the art of medicine and only knows the most basic things. In my opinion, we should ask Royal Prince to quickly move to the manor and let the manor's imperial physician treat you carefully." Marquis Gu said this because he was indeed worried about Royal Prince's injury. Secondly, he thought that Royal Prince came here to denounce Gu Jiao. No matter how much he disliked Gu Jiao was still his and Yao's flesh and blood. He couldn't really let her be punished by Royal Princeton. He had to quickly coax Royal Prince away. Royal Prince wanted to use the same trick again. He said that he was dizzy and should not be tired from traveling. Marquis Gu said that he brought the best carriage in the manor and guaranteed that he wouldn't feel any bumps. Marquis Gu was so determined that Royal Prince couldn't persuade him in the end. Royal Prince unwillingly sat on the carriage back to the manor. Marquis Gu heaved a sigh of relief. However, Royal Prince's heart was filled with doubts. Why did Marquis Gu insist on bringing him back to the manor? Was he worried that he would find something in his daughter's house? Why did his daughter live in the countryside? Was it to hide the Empress Dowager? Marquis Gu didn't know that his actions had made Royal Prince think so much. After returning to the manor, in order to appease Royal Prince's anger, he gave him many expensive antiques and paintings. It really hurt him. Royal Prince became more suspicious of Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu was Imperial Concubine Shu's brother, and Imperial Concubine Shu was one of His Majesty's people. Marquis Gu never stayed in the manor for so long in the past. Could it be that he didn't leave this year because of the Empress Dowager? As more and more clues were pieced together, a reasonable truth was pieced together. Royal Prince called the man in black into the room. After listening to Royal Prince's deduction, the man in black asked in confusion, "But if she really is the Empress Dowager, why didn't she recognize you?" "According to what you said, she didn't see who you were when she knocked you out, but she should have seen you when you fainted." Royal Prince said thoughtfully, "I understand this point, so I want to confirm it again. I've already gone there once. If I go there again, it'll arouse suspicion. Go there tomorrow and say that. I want to apologize for the two misunderstandings. I hope that the two families can bury the hatchet." I also hope that she won't mention my sister's bullying to anyone in the capital, so as to not ruin my sister's reputation." The man in black replied, "Yes, Royal Prince," and said, "You must see the Empress Dowager and tell her about the situation in the capital." The man in black cupped his fists. "Yes, sir. But," thinking of something, the man in black frowned and said, "If she really is the Empress Dowager, what do you plan to do?" Royal Prince and's eyes were cold. "What can I do? Of course I'll bring her back to the capital. I can't let her fall into anyone's hands. It doesn't matter if it's His Majesty or someone else." The man in black hesitated for a moment and said, "I'm afraid that the capital isn't safe now. It's still a mystery how the Empress Dowager got leprosy. His Majesty hid the truth about the Empress Dowager's illness and claimed that she was recovering in the palace because of a sudden illness. If we bring the Empress Dowager back like this, won't we be telling His Majesty that we know everything? And we'll bring the Empress Dowager back without saying anything. Will His Majesty think that we're disloyal to him?" Royal Prince unsnorted. Is this the first time he's afraid of the Zhuang family? From the moment he and Marquis Xuanping's marriage alliance, he's been thinking of ways to contain the Zhuang family. I'm afraid that the Empress Dowager's illness has something to do with His Majesty. The situation in the imperial court is getting worse for the Zhuang family. If the Empress Dowager doesn't come out to control the situation, the Zhuang family will become the second Lu family. There used to be 4 hegemons in the capital: Marquis Xuanping's Xiao family, Duke Luo's Luo family, Duke Ding's Lu family, and Grand Secretary Zhuang family. His Majesty didn't come from a good background. His birth mother didn't even have the right to raise him. He was raised by concubine Jing. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't have a son because she didn't get along with the Crown Prince's maternal family, the Lu family. She defeated the Crown Prince and the Lu family and put concubine Jing's adopted son on the throne. However, His Majesty was an ungrateful wretch. Not only was he not grateful to Empress Dowager Zhuang, but he was also afraid of her after seeing how powerful Empress Dowager Zhuang was. The daughter sent to the palace by the Zhuang family should have been the Empress, but he made Marquis Xuanping's sister Empress in the throne room and married his favorite princess Xinyang to Marquis Xianping. With the support of Marquis Xuanping's family, His Majesty was like a tiger that had grown wings and weakened the Zhuang family's power. However, Empress Dowager Zhuang was still too powerful. As long as she suppressed His Majesty couldn't shake the Zhuang family's foundation. While the Empress Dowager was recovering in the palace, the Zhuang family was suppressed by Marquis Xuanping's family. If this continued, the Zhuang family would be finished. Therefore, even if the Empress Dowager would be in great danger once she returned to the capital, the Zhuang family couldn't care less. Wu Yang, this is our fate. It was his fate to be a hostage in the Chun kingdom. It was also the Empress Dowager's fate to go through fire and water for the Zhuang family. Early the next morning, the man in black changed into a guard's uniform and went to Qingchuan village with a large box of gifts. Gu Yan and the other 2 went to school. Gu Jiao opened the door for him. "Who are you?" Gu Jiao asked. He cupped his hands and smiled. "My name is Wu Yang. I'm Prince An's guard. I'm here to apologize to Miss Gu on the orders of the prince." Gu Jiao said, "Didn't he already apologize yesterday?" Wu Yang said politely, "The prince was injured yesterday and had some things to say. He asked me to come again today." Gu Jiao waited for him to continue. Wu Yang asked, "Can I move these gifts inside for Miss Gu first?" Gu Jiao didn't refuse. Wu Yang moved the large box into the central room. He opened the box and took out several large brocade boxes. He said to Gu Jiao, "The prince hopes that Miss Gu won't mention to anyone that my miss spoke rudely when you return to the capital. My miss has been spoiled by her family and has a domineering personality. The prince apologizes to you. However, reputation is too important to a girl. If people know that she bullies others like this, I'm afraid that she will suffer a lot of criticism in the future. I hope that Miss Gu can understand the prince's love for his sister." It sounded like he was here to shut her up. Gu Jiao didn't say anything and indicated for him to put the things down. Wu Yang jumped out of 2 brocade boxes and said to Gu Jiao, "I scared little brother and old madam yesterday. The prince ordered me to apologize to them personally. She went to school in Jingkong. I'm afraid you won't be able to see her. Grand Aunt doesn't like to see strangers. I'll pass on your apology." Was she really on guard? Wu Yang originally only believed 30% of it, but now he believed 50%. He stood up and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Miss Gu. May I borrow the latrine?" Gu Jiao glanced at him. "Please." Wu Yang went to the latrine with a normal expression. Wu Yang was stalling for time. He had to see the Empress Dowager today. He was lucky that the old madam had a nightmare and woke herself up. She came out to the courtyard to get some fresh air and bumped into Wu Yang. Wu Yang was Prince N's confidant. He had followed Prince N to see the Empress Dowager many times. He was familiar with the Empress Dowager's appearance, unlike Marquis Gu, who had only seen her twice. The person in front of him was dressed like an old lady from the countryside. She was calm and composed. Her aura was far from that of the ruthless Empress Dowager Zhuang. However, Wu Yang could still recognize that she was the Empress Dowager. There was a mole on the Empress Dowager's right earlobe. Wu Yang was sure that he didn't recognize it wrongly. Wu Yang was so excited that he took a big step forward. The old madam had just finished a nightmare and was still in shock. Then, a 7-foot-tall man appeared out of thin air in the backyard. She was shocked. "Who are you?" she asked fiercely. Wu Yang was stunned. "This one is Wu Yang." "What 5 or 6 sheep? I've never heard of it. Go, 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 go away." The old madam anxiously pushed him away. "Jiao Jiao. Why is there another strange person in the house?" Gu Jiao put down the brocade box and walked over. She glanced at Wu Yang and said to the old madam, "He is the bodyguard of the prince from yesterday. He came to apologize." The old madam raised her eyebrows and said, "Did he send anything?" Gu Jiao nodded, "Yes." The old madam went to the main room to look through the porcelain, jade, and tea. She had a look of disgust. "There isn't even a piece of osmanthus cake. Not sincere." Humph. Wu Yang was stunned. What was going on? The Empress Dowager was different from what he thought. "I want to eat sugar egg," the old madam said to Gu Jiao. "All right." Gu Jiao agreed. It was fine as long as there wasn't any sugar water. "Give him a bowl, as well," the old madam said in a serious manner. "He sent so many gifts, so you have to ask him to stay for a meal." "That's fine." Gu Jiao nodded. She went to the kitchen to cook 2 bowls of sugar egg. One bowl was half full, and the other bowl had less sugar. The old madam generously said, "Jiao Jiao, you can go do your work. I'll take care of the guests." Wu Yang gave the Empress Dowager a thumbs up in his heart. First she used the excuse of eating sugar egg to make him stay. Then she thought of a way to send the Gu family away. She was worthy of being the wise Empress Dowager. Gu Jiao carried a pole to the entrance of the village to fetch water. There was no third person in the room. The old madam's expression instantly became excited. Wu Yang was also excited. The Empress Dowager's great wisdom was really just an act. The Empress Dowager wanted to recognize him. Quickly. "Jiao Jiao will be back soon." On. "Yes, quickly." Wu Yang nodded like he was pounding garlic. In the end, he saw the old madam exchange a bowl of sugar egg with him. She then picked up a spoon and ate happily. Wu Yang, digression, monthly votes. Bite a small handkerchief to beg for monthly votes. Also, remember to receive a monthly vote red packet. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/8964-_89642826/115235375. HTML Genius, memorize this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bqg mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 114. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are here. In order to eat sweets, the old lady let Wu Yang be a tool at home for the whole day. Wu Yang said, "Miss Gu, I'm hungry, I want to eat candied fruit. Miss Gu, I'm thirsty, I want to drink mung bean soup, the super sweet kind." When he returned to the villa, Wu Yang was doubting life. Princess saw him in the room. "How was it? Did you see the Empress Dowager?" Wu Yang's face was green. "I saw her, but was that really the Empress Dowager?" Wu Yang told Royal Prince about his miserable day. Prince was shocked. He remembered that when he was in the village yesterday, he seemed to have heard the Empress Dowager say some strange things. But he was too excited and didn't take it to heart. Later, he thought that the Empress Dowager was pretending to be crazy in order to numb the Gu family who put her under house arrest. "I don't think so," Wu Yang pondered. "When Miss Gu went to get water, only the Empress Dowager and I were left in the room. If the Empress Dowager was pretending to be crazy before, then there was no one else. She should be honest with me." However, she didn't. The Empress Dowager only focused on eating the poached eggs. Every time he wanted to speak, the Empress Dowager would raise her hand to stop him. Why didn't he realize that the Empress Dowager was so greedy before? In Prince An's impression, the Empress Dowager Zhuang wasn't someone who would ignore business for a little food. But it was true that she couldn't eat too many sweets. The imperial doctor told him that it was better for the elderly to eat light food. Prince murmured, "How could this be? Did the Empress Dowager lose her memory and caused her personality to change? Or was this the Empress Dowager's true nature? The Empress Dowager was pretending all those years in the palace? But what kind of person could pretend for decades? He had been wearing a cruel and merciless mask for dozens of years. Wouldn't he be exposed? Prince was more willing to believe the former. The Empress Dowager forgot some things, so the change in her personality disappeared. She became a complete stranger. Wu Yang didn't dare to guess. "What do you plan to do? Do you want to bring the Empress Dowager back to the capital?" "I don't know." Royal Prince sighed. An Empress Dowager who only knew how to eat and drink would not be a match for the Emperor. But leaving her here under the eyes of the Marquis of Ding, and he was not at ease. Royal Prince thought for a while and thought of something. He asked Wu Yang, "I have a few things that I don't understand." "What?" Wu Yang asked. Royal Prince pushed open the window and looked at the courtyard filled with flowers and plants. "How did the Empress Dowager lose her memory? Does this matter have anything to do with Ding and Marquis Fu?" Wu Yang followed him and walked over. "Does your Highness mean that they deliberately made the Empress Dowager silly?" Royal Prince shot him a cold look. Wu Yang shrunk his neck and lowered his head. This subordinate has misspoken. How could she say that the Empress Dowager was stupid? Although it was indeed a little silly. Royal Prince asked, "Have you investigated the identity of Miss Gu?" Wu Yang said, "I've investigated clearly. She's the older sister of the twins. Back then, the Marquis gave birth in the temple and was swapped with a village woman's child. Gu Jinyu should be from that village. However, because they had nurtured her for so many years, they did not send Gu Jinyu back even after discovering the truth a few days ago. As for the real Miss Gu, it said that she did not want to return to the Fu. Also, she is already married. Her husband came here from outside." Royal Prince said, "Who did you ask?" Wu Yang said, "This subordinate directly asked the Marquis." Yao Shi did not feel that this was a secret. When Wu Yang asked, Yao Shi told him the truth. Royal Prince and thought for a while. Then, Miss Gu was not purposely placed in the village by Marquis Gu? Wu Yang shook his head and said, it shouldn't be. This subordinate guessed that the Empress Dowager was taken in by Miss Gu after she lost her memory. But how did she become the great-aunt of Miss Gu's husband? Leprosy. Royal Prince narrowed his eyes and said, what? Wu Yang was stunned. Royal Prince unraised his hand to touch the potted begonia on the windowsill. Didn't you just say that Miss Gu's husband is from outside? Wu Yang was confused. That's right, but what does this have to do with them taking in the Empress Dowager? Could it be that Miss Gu's husband is the Empress Dowager's relative? This could not be. The Empress Dowager had a noble status. How could she be a relative of a poor boy from the countryside? Royal Prince and thought for a while. If the Empress Dowager got leprosy and fainted in front of Miss Gu's house, and Miss Gu touched her without knowing it, what would you do if it was you? Wu Yang's eyes widened. How could that be? Leprosy is so infectious. If she touched it, she would be sent to Leprosy Mountain. Could it be? Royal Prince unfaintly raised the corner of his lips. That's right. In order not to be sent to Leprosy Mountain, they could only take in the Empress Dowager and cure her. In order not to arouse suspicion, they lied that they were the great-aunt of Miss Gu's husband and came to seek refuge with them. Wu Yang suddenly realized, that's right. Miss Gu's husband is from outside. Her husband's great-aunt is also from outside. No one will suspect them. Royal Prince unfiddled with a blooming begonia in front of him. What I'm curious about is, how did Miss Gu cure the Empress Dowager's leprosy? Marquis Gu said that she was only a little medicine boy. It seemed that he still did not understand his own daughter. Wu Yang suddenly looked into Royal Prince's eyes. Royal Prince, if she can cure leprosy, then Royal Prince and raised a finger and stopped him from continuing. This prince still does not trust her. Wu Yang sighed with a complicated expression. Yes. Then, what does Royal Prince plan to do with the Empress Dowager? Royal Prince and thought for a while. The Empress Dowager has lost her memories. If we really went to meet her, she would not leave with this prince. Moreover, her identity might be exposed. This is not a wise move. Call a few people and steal the Empress Dowager out in the middle of the night. Wu Yang, steal people? Why did he feel that there was something wrong with this statement? Wu Yang moved very quickly. At night, he brought 7 experts to Clear Spring Village to steal, kidnap people. When he arrived at Miss Gu's house, he found that there were 2 hidden guards hiding nearby. They should be the hidden guards of Marquis Ding and's manor that were secretly protecting the twins. Wu Yang thought that it would be best to lead the 2 away. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if they woke up the Empress Dowager. But hidden guards were different from normal guards. It was unlikely that they would leave their master's side at the same time. Just as Wu Yang was pondering how to carry out his plan, the 2 hidden guards walked out of the house and fled into the forest. It was unknown where they went. Wu Yang, this was also possible? He did not care that much. Time was precious. He had to move quickly. Wu Yang gestured for them to attack. The 7 black-clothed people soared into the air and flew into the backyard. Wu Yang also planned to fly into the yard. Unfortunately, he had just assumed posture. Before he could jump, he heard a loud bang. One of the black-clothed people was kicked out like a sandbag. Wu Yang was a little confused. Was the method of entering wrong? Wu Yang jumped onto the wall. At this time, the 2nd black-clothed person flew past his eyes. He drew a beautiful arc in the air and fell heavily onto the empty ground outside the room. Wu Yang was completely dumbfounded. Didn't the hidden guards already leave? Could they have returned so quickly? He looked towards the backyard. But where were the hidden guards? It was clearly the young Miss Gu, who had slapped Gu Jinyu and Zhuang Kaidai. That day, he had felt that young Miss Gu had gone too far. She even bullied a weak girl who did not even have the strength to truss up a chicken. Now, it seemed that she had been merciful. Otherwise, with the strength of her hand that could send an expert flying with a single punch, if she really wanted to kill them, wouldn't Gu Jinyu and Zhuang Kaidai's heads be smashed? Although the people that Wu Yang had brought over were not top-class experts, they were still much stronger than the average expert. Even so, they had been beaten up by young Miss Gu to the point of not being able to retaliate. Wu Yang wanted to cry. He finally understood why the two hidden guards of Marquis Ding and Fu had suddenly fled into the forest. They were worried. They were afraid that with him here, they would not dare to charge in and ruin this young Miss Mood. Wu Yang calculated in his mind. He was afraid that he was not this young Miss Gu's opponent. Apologies for the offense, young Miss Gu. Wu Yang took out a crossbow from his back and knocked a short arrow. He aimed at Gu Jiao's shoulder and pulled the trigger. But in the blink of an eye, the matriarch's door suddenly opened. She walked out with a yawn. What is it that is so noisy? Wu Yang's hand trembled in shock. The arrow had missed. It had missed in the matriarch's direction. Wu Yang's heart trembled. The speed of a crossbow was several times faster than an arrow. It was already too late for him to grab his arrow back. In the nick of time, he saw Gu Jiao jump up and land in front of the matriarch. She pulled the matriarch to the side. The arrow brushed past the back of her hand and nailed itself to the wall behind the two of them. The back of Gu Jiao's hand had been scratched and was covered in blood. She used her other hand to pull out the arrow and fiercely threw it in the direction of Wu Yang in the night. That arrow was too fast. It was so fast that even an expert like Wu Yang could not dodge it. His right shoulder was hit by the arrow. He gave a grunt and said to the black-clothed men on the ground, "Retreat." After the group of people left, the village regained its tranquility. The matriarch saw the blood on the back of Gu Jiao's hand. "Jiao Jiao, you're injured." Gu Jiao did not care. "It's nothing. It's just a scratch." The matriarch scolded, "Our family's life is getting better, but now we're being targeted by thieves." Thieves? The thieves that came the previous few times didn't have such skills and equipment. Gu Jiao looked at the boundless night sky. She felt that these people did not come for the money. They went straight to the small east room. That was her great-aunt's room. Wu Yang returned to the villa with an injury. He did not have time to heal himself before he went to the study to see Royal Prince and looked at him in confusion. What happened? He knelt down on one knee and said with shame, "I failed in my duty. I couldn't bring the Empress Dowager back, and almost hurt the Empress Dowager." He didn't dare to hide anything and reported everything to Royal Princeton. A trace of surprise flashed through Royal Princeton's eyes. "I didn't expect," Wu Yang agreed. "Yes, I didn't expect that Miss Gu, who grew up in the common people, would have such skills." Royal Princeton pursed his lips. "No, I didn't expect that she would sacrifice herself to save an old lady who has nothing to do with her. She did it to protect herself. Now that she had recovered, she could have sent her away, or at least she did not have to risk her life to save her." According to Wu Yang, if she dodged a little, her heart would have been pierced by the arrow. He really did not understand this Miss Gu more and more. He looked at the bright moon in the sky and whispered, "Miss Gu, how much do I not know about you?" Wu Yang begged, "Royal Prince, out tomorrow night." Royal Prince and interrupted him lightly. "No need. Since she protects the Empress Dowager so much, let the Empress Dowager stay by her side." Wu Yang was shocked. "Royal Prince." Royal Prince looked into the distance. "Now is not the best time to bring the Empress Dowager back to the capital. Let me go back and report to grandfather. After making all the arrangements, I will bring her back safely. Miss Gu, we will meet again soon." The next day, Royal Princeton bid farewell to Marquis Gu and Lady Yao. "The provincial examination is around the corner. I can't stay here any longer. I must return to the capital as soon as possible. I am indebted to Marquis and Lady Marquis for your hospitality these few days. I am very grateful." For the first time, he used Junior. Marquis Gu was so scared that he was tongue-tied. Royal Princeton's gentle gaze fell on Lady Yao's face. "Lady Marquis, your daughter is very outstanding. She is better than countless daughters in the capital. If there is a chance, please bring your daughter to the manor to have a chat with Mengdai." Lady Yao bowed and thanked him. Gu Jinyu, who was behind the two, could not help but blush. Was the royal prince praising her? Zhuang Mengdai also thought that her brother was praising Gu Jinyu. She pursed her lips. She already knew that there was no such thing as triplets. Gu Jinyu was the Gu family's wrong child. That girl was the real daughter. Neither of them were good people. She did not like either of them. The brother and sister set foot on the road back to the capital. The carriage had gone far away, but Gu Jinyu still had not recovered from Royal Prince An's praise. There wasn't a single girl who wouldn't like Princess An, but most of them were just wishful thinking. But what if Royal Prince An was interested in a girl first? From what she knew, Royal Prince An had not discussed marriage. His words just now, were he hinting at something to her father and mother? Gu Jinyu secretly glanced at Marquis Gu and Lady Yao. Their expressions were calm. It was obvious that they did not think in this direction. She could not help but feel anxious. Father was a blockhead in this area. She could not count on him. Mother only had her own daughter in her heart. She did not care about her at all. If Mother knew that Royal Prince An was interested in a girl from the Marquis's manor, would she let Gu Jiao marry over? In just a moment, Gu Jinyu's mind filled in many possibilities. Her mind was in a mess. On one hand, Royal Prince An's praise evoked her unrealistic fantasies. On the other hand, she desperately wanted to return to the capital and find imperial concubine Shu to make a decision. Gu Jiao received the farm tools from the blacksmith shop. There were a lot of farm tools. The worker from Huichun Hall went to get them. Before she left, the old blacksmith called out to her, "Little brother, what is the surname of your young miss?" The worker said, "You mean Miss Gu? She is not my young miss." The old blacksmith was stunned. "Ah, then she is..." The worker did not know that Gu Jiao practiced medicine. He said, "She is a friend of our boss." The old blacksmith asked, "Can I trouble little brother to tell me where she lives so that I can go and thank her?" The worker said, "Miss Gu said that if she succeeds, she can be exempted from paying for the farm tools." The old blacksmith, but there were no buts. The worker left with the large carts of farm tools. The old blacksmith looked at the back of the horse carriage as it left. He was in a daze for a long time. Gu Jiao did not touch the empty space halfway up the mountain for the time being. She hired the nearby villagers to cultivate a large medicinal field on the mountain. She also dug a fish pond and a ditch to draw water from the bottom of the waterfall into the fish pond. Gu Yan's secret guards became the coolies in the mountain. They were sent to dig the ditch every day. After a month, the two of them became really tanned. In the blink of an eye, it was autumn. This year's summer was not particularly hot. Instead, it was the return of the hot autumn that made people sweat profusely. Xiao Liulong's group had been in the provincial capital for a period of time. Under the careful arrangements of the Lin family, they stayed in the most advanced and luxurious, in closest to the provincial capital's tribute court. Steward Zhou had asked several times to invite Xiao Lulang to the residence as a guest, but he was rejected by Xiao Lulang every time. Lin Qingye had been tortured by Xiao Lulang for the past few months. When he went to Qingchuan town, he was still a little fatty. When he returned to the provincial capital, he had lost 2 sizes of weight. Every time Xiao Lulang taught him questions, he would feel enlightened. He also did not understand why Xiao Lulang was so knowledgeable. He was more knowledgeable than all the teachers in the residence combined. However, when it was Xiao Liulong's turn to give him questions, he was done for. In any case, he was someone who had experienced the county exam, the capital exam, and the academy exam. Normal questions were not difficult for him. However, were the questions Xiao Lulang gave him questions? They were knives. In fact, even the 4 books and 5 classics had a scope of examination. Some chapters had to be memorized, while others were not. Xiao Lulang did not care about this. He casually gave a set of exam questions, and more than half of them were not important chapters. Lin Qingye's head was about to explode. He had lost weight from Xiao Liulong's examination. Lin Qingye complained to Feng Lin. Feng Lin made an O sound and said, "You misunderstood him. He did not deliberately not test the important chapters. He simply did not know which chapters were important." He had never highlighted the important points. He directly went from head to back to tail, and he even memorized it backwards without missing a word. Even after being tortured by Xiao Lulang, Lin Qingye still did not choose to return to the residence after returning to the provincial capital. He, Xiao Lulang, and Feng Lin stayed together at an inn. The provincial examination had a total of 3 rounds, and each round lasted for 3 days. The first round was on the 8th day of the 8th month, which was tomorrow. The inn was filled with provincial examination examinees, and the entire inn's atmosphere became tense. The only person who could be calm was Xiao Lulang. Feng Lin was also a little nervous, but he had too many things to do, so he did not have the time to be nervous. "Little Lin, come and help." Feng Lin called Lin Qingye to the inn's small kitchen. This small kitchen was rented by the Lin family for a large sum of money, and they had even arranged for a chef to be in charge of it. The provincial examination did not care about the examinees' meals. The chef wanted to cook for them, but was rejected by Feng Lin. Before leaving, Gu Jiao gave him a list of things to take note of and related recipes. The recipes were very detailed. Gu Jiao even took the weather into consideration. If the weather was cold, the first recipe would be used. If the weather was hot, the second recipe would be used. Biscuits, jerky, oranges, pickled vegetables. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye fiddled in the kitchen for an entire afternoon, and finally prepared everything they needed. The jerky was roasted by them, and the aroma of the meat filled the air, making all the examinees in the inn hungry. The pickled vegetables had been pickled a few days ago, and now that it was done, Feng Lin filled 3 small jars. The biscuits could not be left for too long, and were made by the chef before dawn. Feng Lin instructed the biscuits to be dry, without any moisture. Every provincial capital's provincial examination had 2 main examiners, appointed by the imperial court. They and the local examiners entered the examination courtyard on the 6th day of the new year, and first held a banquet. The inner curtain officials entered the inner curtain area in the back hall, and the examiners closed the curtains. The inner curtain officials were also known as the marking officials. They stayed from the day they entered until the end of the provincial examination, and only left after marking all the examination papers. The entire process could take up to half a month. During this time, they were not allowed to interact with the outside world, and even the examiners outside the curtains were not allowed to interact with each other. On the 8th day of the new year, the examinees came to the examination venue early. Although each round had 3 days, the real examination only had 1 day in between. The first day was for the entrance inspection, and the third day was for the exit inspection. Early in the morning, there was a long queue outside the examination courtyard. Xiao Lulang and the other 2 came neither early nor late, and were in the 100th place. They were not in a hurry, but Steward Zhou was beside them. The provincial examination did not allow people to line up for them. Otherwise, their Lin family would have outsourced the examination courtyard. "Have you brought the water?" Steward Zhou asked Lin Qingye. Lin Qingye nodded. "Yes." Steward Zhou asked again, "Have you brought all the food?" Lin Qingye nodded again. "Yes." He could still say these 2 words without stuttering. Steward Zhou was still worried. "Then are your clothes thick enough? I'm afraid you'll catch a cold at night." "It's hot," Lin Qingye said. Steward Zhou sighed. The weather this year was abnormal. It wasn't hot when it should be hot, but it wasn't cold when it should be cold. He heard that the crops in the countryside were not growing well. Steward Zhou wanted to say something more, but Lin Qingye frowned. "Leave, annoying." "Steward Zhou, Steward Zhou had just taken 2 steps when he was shocked by Feng Lin, and almost fell. "What's wrong?" He turned around and asked. Feng Lin said, "I forgot to give this to you. Jianyang said that if the weather is hot, we should bring this into the examination hall. It can refresh the mind and also drive away mosquitoes and stop itching." It was 3 bottles of essential bombs. However, Gu Jiao had replaced the glass bottles with jade bottles. After adding a stopper, she sealed the bottles with wax. "Can we bring this?" Steward Zhou asked. Other than water and food, They couldn't bring anything else with them. Feng Lin explained this can be used externally, but it can also be taken orally. Jianyang said that if anyone asks, we should drink it and show it to them. Xiao Liulang's gaze was subtle. You two are very close now. Feng Lin didn't notice his companion's dangerous gaze and said, I was ignorant in the past and misunderstood Jianyang. She's actually a very good person. Lulang really, to be able to get such a wife is a man's good fortune. I also want to. Xiao Liulang's gaze was like a knife, and Feng Lin finally couldn't ignore it. Feng Lin shrunk his neck resentfully. Okay, I don't want to. Xiao Lulang took the essential bombs. Was it the strange things in the box again? He had seen these words before. That night, most of the things that rolled out of the box had these words on them. However, that night, he didn't see these few bottles of green things. So it wasn't his imagination. That small box was able to produce strange things, and they were always different. Did it have some kind of strange trick or mechanism? Since these bottles were medicine, then could the ones he saw before also be medicine? Was it a small medicine box? Even someone as smart as Xiao Lulang couldn't understand Gu Jiao's small box. Soon it was his, Feng Lin's, and Lin Qingye's turn to be searched by the guards. Feng Lin indicated that they had brought water. When he opened the bottle and drank a drop, he almost died from the taste. Oh my God, this is too refreshing. After entering the examination hall, the examinees were assigned to their respective examination sheds. Some people also called them rooms. The rooms were simple and crude. There were only 2 wooden planks. One was used as a table, and the other was used as a chair. They were respectively embedded in the grooves on both sides of the room. At night, the examinees would put the 2 planks together to make a bed and spend the night there. During these 3 days, the examinees weren't allowed to leave their rooms. They had to eat, drink, go to the toilet, and sleep inside. The first test was about memorization and poetry. It was reasonable to say that it would be the Analects of Confucius, the Doctrine of the Mean, or the Great Learning, or the Mencius, as well as a 5-character 8-rhyme poem that he had composed himself. However, this year's provincial examination questions were especially abnormal. There was an additional test, the Classic of Filial Piety. Strictly speaking, the Classic of Filial Piety wasn't long. It was less than 2,000 words. However, the problem was it wasn't tested. If it wasn't tested, who would memorize it, right? When he saw that he had to memorize the Classic of Filial Piety, Lin Qingye's hair stood on end. It wasn't because he was scared, but because he was excited. Because Xiao Lulang had tested it. Xiao Lulang was a very strict teacher. As long as Lin Qingye didn't know how to answer the questions, he would retest him a 2nd, 3rd, or even 4th time until Lin Qingye knew how to do it. Not only did Lin Qingye lose weight, but he also became bald at a young age. It was all because of Xiao Liulang's torture. However, at this moment, Lin Qingye loved Xiao Liulang's torture to death. Lin Qingye knew that there would be very few people memorizing the Classic of Filial Piety in the provincial examination. Just the first test alone was enough for him to lead many people. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964-2_89642826/115206174. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhpqg.com that you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.